other crimes. 2 of them are still in Eswatini. In fact, we'll hear from the Eswatini police in about an hour from now and about how all of those processes work. And as the police minister Bekele said this week, they have the shooters, they have the coordinator, they have the spotter, but what we don't have is the funder. And so I'm expecting at least 5 people to appear in the Magistrates Court in Durban today. The question, of course, comes from there. What do we know about them? Where does the money come from? Who orchestrated this? Who paid for it? And we know that life has become, unfortunately, very cheap in South Africa. Big story developing overnight. Transnet has a new CEO. Congratulations to Transnet and to Michelle Phillips. She was the acting CEO. Business is very excited. In fact, Busisiwe Mavuso said that she's elated and happy at the appointment. Of course, the problems at Transnet costing us around 1 billion rand a day. There's a new chief financial officer as well, Nosipho Mapondo, and in a way, I think that really is going to be the sort of leadership team, because it's always the CEO and the chief financial officer who sort of have to do things together, in my experience. And of course, I have absolutely no experience of running a company. But still, good luck to you both. It's going to be a tough time. Some of the experts we've spoken to have said that this team, in an acting capacity, was doing very well. So it looks like we'll get some sort of continuity there. But Transnet just causing huge problems. By the way, as what my son calls a fun fact about Michelle Phillips, is that she started her career, wait for it, can anyone guess what Michelle Phillips started her career at? She started as a forensic investigator at the Special Investigating Unit. That was her first job as an investigator. So clearly someone who understands how money works. Very interesting to see how it plays out. And we've got to connect all of the dots. We're going to speak to the General Secretary of COSATU in a while, Solly Petre, and they're very upset, and correctly, about the number of jobs that have gone in the mining industry. Now, when you have Transnet not working and you can't export coal because Transnet's railways aren't working and the train locomotives aren't working, well, then you can see what happens to mine workers. They lose their jobs. By the way, Anglo American Platinum is also giving dividends back of around 6 billion rand to their shareholders. But then, if you look at the problems Transnet has, some of this goes back to rail locomotives, not the tall ones, the other ones. And that goes back to a Chinese company that SARS says owes us a huge amount in tax and they won't pay it. So all of these things are connected to each other. Very tangled problem for Nosipho Mapondo and Michelle Phillips to now go and sort out. Other issues, of course, this morning. It's been interesting to watch over the last sort of 24 hours we've seen this. First, the South African Air Force headquarters in Tshwane was deemed unfit for human occupation by the Labour Department. They had an inspection. There have been complaints there for ages. The temperatures in there, so what happens in some of these buildings is that there are no windows. You can't open them. There's a sort of very complicated ventilation system. When it doesn't work, you have a major problem. Temperatures in there up to 40 degrees Celsius, I understand. Workers now, there's sort of some critical workers who have to go in. They're allowed in for 2 hours at a time, then they have to come out. They have to wear a face mask all the time. Can you imagine sitting at 40 degrees Celsius wearing a face mask? I mean, are we going to have to give people oxygen tanks to go into this building? It's astonishing. And the similar thing has now happened at the South African Police Service headquarters in Tshwane, the Telkom Towers building there. The Labour Department was there yesterday and said people can't work here. Also, problems with ventilation, problems with simple dirt. And I mean, how difficult is it to keep something clean? I mean, we've been doing this for years. And then problems with toilets as well, broken toilets. I mean, why are we asking our police officers to work like this? Surely we shouldn't have to do it like that. There's got to be a better way. And it shouldn't be that hard. Anyway, I think we might look at seeing if we can do a sort of big mediated conversation around buildings at some point. In eThekwini, SAMWU members, they're on strike and they're blocking roads. How are they blocking roads? Using rubbish. And can I just get this off my chest, if you don't mind? And let's just be clear. Can we agree on this? To use rubbish to block roads is gross. Okay? It's just gross. Full stop, end of. Why would you do that? And I know some will say, oh, we use the tools of our trade or whatever. Frankly, for me, for what it's worth, you can disagree if you like, I don't think that's acceptable. They've got to be other ways. If you want to block a road, and we've seen this with protesters before, go and stand there or do something else. But just gross. And I understand, people have a right to strike and all the rest, but I don't think we need to do it like this. So very, very difficult situation. Then eThekwini, of course, so many problems. By the way, where I live, I've seen in Joburg recently, there's been a big water leak towards the bottom of a hill, and it's been gushing water for ages. And there's a strike at Joburg Water as well, I understand. We've been told that no one will come and fix it until that strike's over. And you've got this crystal clear drinking water just literally going nowhere. Very difficult situation. As I say, I appreciate strikes. I understand that. But, sheesh, we've got to find some way of resolving these things. SAA yesterday releasing their annual report. So they'd released some of this information before. The Auditor General was answering questions about it. Did you know this? What happened to SAA in the years 2018 to 2022? I'm going to give you a big figure now, so you may want to be sitting down and make sure that your tray table is in an upright position when I give you this figure. Over that period, from 2018 to 2022, SAA made a loss of 23.5 billion rand. Can you imagine that? I mean, at what point does it just become monopoly money? 23.5 billion rand. We get very excited when we're borrowing, when we're sort of taking or using 150 billion rand from that special contingency account in the Reserve Bank. But here we are with one SOE losing 23.5 billion rand in just sort of 4 or 5 years. It's incredible. Anyway, how are you this morning? You know the number, 086 000 2032, SMS 41391, tweet us FM Radio and at Stephen Grootes, and send your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Why? Because it'll be another 4 years before you can do it on the 29th of February.
Eskom understands that electricity is an integral part of running a business. However, electricity demand is currently higher than supply, and energy efficiency is critical. Businesses are encouraged to reduce consumption between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. by not leaving electrical equipment on standby mode, as well as turning off unnecessary lighting. We can reduce load shedding by working together. Every kilowatt counts.
USM Alger want to finish their Group A matters on a high note, while Matsatsansa Pitori target an away victory to travel back to Mzansi's capital city with pride. This is the CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the beauty of African football. USM Alger FC takes on SuperSport United FC on Sunday, 3 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Nomalizo Mandela, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you, Stephen?
I'm all right. Do you know anyone who has a birthday on the 29th of February who has to wait so long for their birthday?
I actually do.
Oh.
I do.
I hope you celebrate with them today.
And funny enough, they actually do not even recognize it. They don't celebrate it. I don't understand. But yeah, I do know somebody.
Quite irritating, I think, for some
I suppose, it's coming out every after 2-4 years. So
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway. What's coming up today?
All right, so the AKA story still continues. We're still watching developments on that front. The first court appearance of the arrested suspects will be happening today. We're going to be watching the outcomes of that and watching the activities outside court. I think that one will be even more interesting, expecting some kind of gathering by supporters. We're also monitoring the developments on the extradition process from Eswatini of the 2 other suspects that are still in that country. So we'll be definitely bringing you details on those ones. The fire in Gqeberha, the firefighters are still battling with the raging fire, and they're saying it might take 2 days or more to contain it. They are struggling to contain it because of strong winds that continue to persist. And a number of people have been evacuated in the area, so we'll bring you details on those. The minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, will be giving an update on the cabinet outcomes following the cabinet meeting. We'll definitely bring you details on that. Kosatu is also expected to brief the media. They're expected to speak on issues of campaigning for or with the ANC. But also, Stephen, during the manifesto launch over the weekend, Kosatu President Zingiso Lusi touched on issues of their members being intimidated by Umkhonto weSizwe Party, I believe, in KZN. We're expecting that maybe they will elaborate more on those details today. So we'll bring you details on that. The Zondo rape case is still continuing, Stephen, today. So we'll bring you details.
You're allowed to use his name, Stephen Zondo. We're not related.
Sure, it's okay. But we'll definitely be bringing details on those one too.
Nomalizo Mandela, thanks very much indeed. We'll be listening on the radio 19 minutes after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 16 and 27. Johannesburg, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 15 and 26. Vereeniging, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 15 and 27. Bombela, cloudy, fog patches in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 16 and 23. Polokwane, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 16 and 27. Mahakeng, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 17 and 28. Vryburg, fine, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon thundershowers, 19 and 33. Mangaung, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 13 and 34. Kimberley, fine, becoming partly cloudy, isolated afternoon thundershowers, 18 and 35. Uppington, partly cloudy, scattered afternoon thundershowers, 24 and 39. Cape Town, fog in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, a moderate northwesterly, 23 and 29. George, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, a light and variable wind in the morning, 18 and 31. Gqeberha, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the evening, a fresh to strong northeasterly, 18 and 26. East London, partly cloudy in the early morning, otherwise fine, a fresh to strong northeasterly, 18 and 28. Queenie, partly cloudy, a gentle to moderate northeasterly, 19 and 26. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, isolated light morning showers and rain, a light to moderate easterly wind, 19 and 28. And Pietermaritzburg, morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, 16 and 26.
Attention all HPCSA registered practitioners. It is your responsibility to comply with CPD requirements. Non-compliance may result in suspension, writing a compulsory board examination, or other penalties imposed by the professional boards. The CPD program is ongoing and practitioners must immediately comply to remain registered with council. To view your CPD status, update contact details or perform other self-service functions, access the HPCSA online portal or visit www.hpcsa.co.za.
ES Tunis is adamant a win is non-negotiable in front of their home fans against the Sudanese Giants. Meanwhile, Al Hilal is inspired that the best conclusion of the group stage is to triumph on foreign ground. This is the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis clashes with Al Hilal on Saturday 2 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
Well, while it appears that negotiations are still underway involving various parties, including Hamas, Israel, Qatar, and the US, around a ceasefire in Gaza, in the US, there are what might be the first signs that President Joe Biden could actually pay an electoral price for his support for Israel. In the Michigan presidential primaries this week, a large number of people in the Democratic Party put themselves down as uncommitted after a campaign by activists for people to use that tactic to show they're unhappy with Biden. Biden has strongly supported Israel. The Republicans support Israel, but there appears to be a perhaps small but growing lobby in the Democratic Party that wants to change this because of the way Israel has behaved in Gaza. Nearly 30,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli actions there. Brooks Spector is an associate editor at Daily Maverick and an expert on American politics. Brooks, good morning. Thank you for your time. We all know how important the US is to Israel. Without US support, it will probably not be able to behave in the way that it's doing. How do we assess what happened in Michigan and what it means to Biden?
Well, good morning, Stephen. Michigan was, as everybody should understand by now, one of the larger states that has just had a primary election that is select the candidates for the respective political parties. About 13% of Democrats, registered Democrats who registered, who voted in the Michigan primary, voted for uncommitted. Uncommitted is not a family name. It simply means what it was. I'm not picking a candidate. That percentage is not wildly at variance with historical features of Michigan primaries, but because there was a fairly significant voting total, the 101,000 people it represents is a largish number. And Michigan, it's a sign of potential trouble for Democrats, because Michigan is one of those states that is a must-win for a Democratic candidate. Strong union state, strongly urbanized, but significantly increasingly in recent years a larger population of Arab Americans or Muslim Arab Americans, for that matter, residing in that state. And one of the cities, Dearborn, in fact, is majority Arab American at this point. And so if Michigan is important for Democrats, and if they cannot afford to lose the state because of a protest vote when the general election comes around, you get to see how significant or important it might be. On the other hand, Biden won 81% of the vote, and so some are arguing that this was a protest vote that melts away by the time you get to the general election. But in any case, it has already provoked some changes in both language and in action for Joe Biden vis-a-vis U.S.-Israel support.
I mean, for the moment, I presume the majority of American voters still support Israel. But, I mean, this can change. I mean, there was a time, long time ago, when the majority of American voters did not want to impose sanctions on apartheid South Africa. And that changed.
Yes, no, I mean, policies are not written in stone forever and ever without the possibility of change. And it is true that survey data tells you that younger voters from minorities, people of color, shall we say, have less connection to Israel as an ally than people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And that could be a problem if you want to talk about actual policies. I think, a couple of straws in the wind, Joe Biden, after his first couple days, and back in October 7, 8, and 9, saying the U.S. stands unequivocally behind Israel, etc., in recent days sanctioned a number of settler leaders on the West Bank, Israelis who live on the West Bank, and has uttered the word ceasefire in public for the first time, and in fact has been leading the idea of creating the so-called grand bargain using the good offices of Qatar and Egypt to begin to pull off some sort of major settlement, Israel, West Bank, Gaza, and so forth, in exchange for recognition by Saudi Arabia and other Arab states. So policies do move. What they usually don't do is happen to have change in a heartbeat. That's the difference.
Brooke Spector, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time. Expert on American politics, an associate editor at Daily Maverick. Well, fascinating to see that change. As you know, of course, how important the US is to the situation in the Middle East and for the moment for people in Gaza. 27 minutes after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
It was a late winner last night.
Yeah, that important 3 points. Sekhukhune United defeating Golden Arrows 1-0. A DStv Premiership clash at the Mpumalanga Stadium last night. Elias Mokwana struck in the 90th minute to see Babina Noko claim a 5th win from their last 7 league matches and rise to 8th place on the log. In the other match, Cape Town City and SuperSport United played to a 1-1 draw, and that happened at Cape Town Stadium. Now, after seeing Mamelodi Sundowns beat AmaZulu 3-0 to go 12 points clear at the top of the table, the stalemate in Cape Town did neither of them any good as they remained deadlocked on 31 points. Now, City's next league assignment sees them host local rival Stellenbosch at the Cape Town Stadium on the 5th of March. While Matsatsansa welcome Polokwane City at the Lucas Masterpieces Moripe Stadium on the 6th of March. Elsewhere, Manchester United overcame Nottingham Forest 1-0 at the City Ground to advance to the FA Cup quarterfinals and ease the pressure on manager Erik ten Hag. Now, Jurgen Klopp's side Liverpool, who kicked off their match 15 minutes later than United last night, they beat Southampton 3-0 at Anfield. Chelsea bounced back from their Carabao Cup final defeat with a 3-2 win over Leeds United to book an FA Cup quarter-final date with Leicester at Stamford Bridge. Closer to home, Netball South Africa have confirmed that Jenny van Dijk is the new coach of the Proteas netball team. Van Dijk served as the head coach of the Proteas under-21 and she is raring to go.
I'm an idealist, I'm a strategist, I'm an analyst. I dream big. That's just what I do. Ever since I've been very young, I wanted to win a World Cup, and it's something that I want to do. I know it's going to take a massive team effort, and I know it's not going to be a straight line to get to that top performance, but I think it's worth the shot. And I think, if I'm going to leave everything on court, then I'm going to make sure that I do absolutely everything in my ability to get to that performance. And in saying that, obviously, we know what we're up against.
Now, athletics news, sprinter Sean Maswanganyi set a new South African record. That's in the men's 200-meter short track at an indoor track and field meet that took place in Texas. He clocked 20.41 seconds. The 23-year-old also bagged a silver medal in the 60-meter race at the same event. Now, born in Soweto, Sean attended St. Albans College in Pretoria and is now thriving as a student at the University of Houston. He currently holds the South African 60-meter indoor under-20 national record and the South African under-20 national 100-meter record. In tennis action, Yuri Leheka, he saved 5 match points in the second set and battled back to beat the Russian number 4 seed Karen Khachanov 6-7, 7-6, 6-4. And that's the last 16 ATP 500 Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championship. He'll next face Kazakhstan's Andrei Bublik after the number 7 seed beat Talan Griekspoor of the Netherlands in another close match. 7-6, 7-6 was that score. That's a wrap of your sport on Sunrise. More for you at top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. In the next half hour, we'll speak to COSATU's General Secretary, Sally Petwe. Various issues, job losses, the situation at Transnet with their new CEO, also, of course, unsafe buildings. You with SFM leading the conversation. Stage 2, all day is the forecast, 6:30.
And in the headlines, 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan A.K. Forbes and his friend Tibello Tibbs Mutwane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. In other news, Mpumalanga Education MEC Bonagele Majuba has sent condolences to the families of the 2 teachers who died in a crash along the N4 road towards Mbombela yesterday. They were on their way back from a Mathematics, Science and Technology Academy training session at Emalahleni. And Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has announced the appointment of Michelle Phillips as Transnet's new Group Chief Executive Officer. I'll be back with more details on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Not a bad run through the traffic this morning. The Mike 1 into Joburg, a little bit slower than you'd like. Gold Reef City through to about Smith Street, but that's pretty normal, I would think, for this time of morning. Midrand, Olifantsfontein, heading east from Blue Hills into Lever Road. There's a backlog already there. And the bottom end of the Mopoli Highway, quite busy into Eskia and Pethali. There are about 30-plus minute delays on trains this morning that come in from Mobopani and Kura, so that might just result in a bit of extra vehicular traffic. Durban side, we're keeping eyes on the M7, see how that gets along this morning. It's been a really bad week during the morning peak times from Queensborough down to the roadworks at Bel Air and Wakesley. This stage is running okay, but we'll watch out. The Chatsworth exit, Higginson Highway is quite busy, coming through from Bayview down towards the N2 Highway, very slow through Havenside and Mabeni this morning. And Cape Town looks a busy one. The N1 inbound from Belleville to Sable Road, the N2 from the airport through to Hospital Bend. Both routes are chock-a-block full of traffic. It's amazing how much traffic there is towards central Cape Town this time of the morning, and still no lights. M7, Jake Scoville driving the R300. They've been down for a while at Mitchell's Plain. Both of those routes backlogging into the junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Maklaka, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. All good, thanks. Hi there.
No worries. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mixed. Inflation data in the US will be released later today. The inflation data is likely to have a notable impact on the outlook for interest rates. US central bank officials have said they need greater confidence that inflation is reducing before they can cut interest rates. So investors are nervous ahead of the the inflation data release in the US. Before the US market opens later today, the US futures market is down. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each down 0.1%. In Asian markets, China's Shanghai Composite is up 0.7%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is up 0.2%, and Japan's Nikkei is down 0.5%. And the dollar to the rand is 19.13 this morning.
And then obviously the big news about Michelle Phillips at Transnet.
Yeah, Michelle Phillips becomes the 8th CEO of Transnet in 23 years. Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has confirmed the permanent appointment of Phillips to lead the state-owned freight rail and ports operator. Phillips is a Transnet insider and veteran. She has been with Transnet since 2001 and served in various roles over the past 22 years, mainly at the company's port and pipeline operations. She stepped in as the acting Transnet CEO last year when Portia Derby resigned. Phillips is seen as bringing in technical expertise and institutional memory to the Transnet top job, and she has the big job of arresting the decline of Transnet's operations, which are undermining the recovery of South Africa's economy.
And then Harmony Gold benefiting from a stronger gold price and a rise in output.
Yeah, Harmony Gold is the outlier in the mining sector. This is because Harmony Gold is profitable at a time when its peers in the platinum mining sector are losing a lot of money. Harmony Gold's earnings grew by more than 200% during the 6 months ending December last year. During this period, Harmony Gold benefited from a higher gold price, which increased by 18%. So profitable is Harmony Gold that it will reward its shareholders with dividend payments amounting to 1 billion rand.
Ray Machlaka, thanks very much indeed. Ray, of course, back in an hour's time. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mansula, good morning.
Steve, refreshing morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
The economy in Sudan, it's shrunk by 40%. Wow.
Stephen, this came from the finance minister yesterday when he was briefing the media in Port Sudan and saying that it will worsen more in 2024 with 28% being likely to go down in terms of the conflict that has been going on since 2023. And he's raising the issues around that. The conflict have caused great damage to infrastructure, public facilities, private homes, and property throughout Sudan. So this is a challenge, Stephen, as you know, that even at the UN Security Council, they've been push and pull back in terms of dealing with the conflict. At the same time, you still have a humanitarian crisis. Hence, you have this economic, what you can call economic crisis that is facing Sudan.
And then in Kenya, the Kenyan President William Ruto welcoming the Ethiopian Prime Minister.
Stephen, they are meeting immediately after the 37th Africa Union Summit, Heads of State, that was in Addis Ababa last week. But this meeting also, Stephen, covers what they are saying is to strengthen the relationship between the two countries. Others are saying this is a first state visit by Abiy Ahmed since 2020. They are going to engage on the issues of the Memorandum of Understanding which Ethiopia is having with the Somaliland. They're also looking at the issues of the removal of the visa between the two countries. Hence, William Ruto is hosting Abiy Ahmed.
And then Mali's foreign minister is actually in Russia.
He's in Russia. The Mali Foreign Affairs Minister, Abdullah Diop, is meeting with his counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, and they are engaging, Stephen, on very topical issues that will include security, that will also include the support of Moscow in terms of assisting Bamako with almost 25,000 tons of wheat that were being promised in the Africa-Russia summit. So this meeting is very important, Stephen, as we have seen how the Sahel leaders, most of the military leaders, have been moving towards Kremlin and moving away from Paris. Now, this meeting of the Foreign Affairs Minister is very important, Stephen. Hence, I said that Moscow is appearing to be supporting most of the rebel groups in the Sahel region.
And then in Uganda, and then the International Criminal Court, they're ordering reparation for victims in Uganda.
Stephen, remember the case of the Uganda militia commander, and you still have the fugitive of the run, Joseph Kony of the Lord Resistance Army in Uganda. Now, yesterday, the court ruled for $56 million compensation for Ugandan victims. But the same Dominic Ongwen doesn't have money to do that and to pay those victims. We are talking here of 50,000 victims who were affected by the war that was between the government of Uganda and the Lord Resistance Army. Now, it has been said that even every individual will get what they call 750 euros per victim, and the other money will go on what they call collective reparations, like rehabilitating programs and memorial sites in Uganda. This is a very interesting case, Stephen. More so, it has been taking on for almost 2 decades, and like I said earlier, Joseph Kony is still on the run.
And then you're taking us back to this day, 29th of February, 1988.
Stephen, even if you said earlier it is the leap year, it happened in 1988, 36 years ago, when the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu was arrested in the then apartheid parliament in Cape Town for marching against the death sentence of the Sharpeville Six. We'll recall the Sharpeville Six of 1984. Now, Desmond Tutu was in that protest march and was arrested by the apartheid police system during that time. Asante sana LG, as was leading the conversation, and happy birthday to Stanza Baraka.
Thank you very much indeed, Ras Advocate Sipho Mantula. Indeed, Stanza, the 29th of February only happens every 4 years. 20 minutes to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number. Ninja on the line from Durban. Ninja, hi. Rubbish thrown on the highway in that protest yesterday.
Yeah, the point is this, there's 2 sides of the coin. One's the government, and certain sections of society, maybe a majority. You cannot have this unruly behavior. Now, the only way you can resolve this is putting the army in every hotspot to solve the crime.
Sure.
And all this that goes on, and it doesn't make it easy for the economy. Now, this protest is disrupting, people going about their business, and that cannot happen. You cannot block the highway.
Yeah.
There's laws against it, and the government is not strong enough to deal with these problems. There's no party that can deal with the problem. It's reached breaking point, and people are. You can see they're apathetic and they're frustrated. When you listen to the radio, and there's no service delivery throughout the country because the council are like splintered glass held by lamination, just by a thread.
Yeah.
And the penny has to fall, Stephen. And I think this election will be a test. I think the ANC is going to get below 40%. Mark my words. I'll come back to you after the election.
Well, let's see, Ninja. I don't see many predictions of that, I've got to say. I think that's unlikely. But I hear your frustration around the rubbish. And I know the unions will say no, but, we're using the tools of our trade. My response to them has always been, well, you don't see the defence union using their guns. I mean, I think that's a nonsense argument. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? 086 000 2032. That issue, also the situation at Transnet, and, of course, the arrests in the AKA Tibbs Motswane murders. Important issues this morning. 18 minutes to 7.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We buy cars, the easy easiest way to sell your car by far.
Diable Noir can't wait to demonstrate to Sekhukhune United that what they did to them in Limpopo will not prevail in Brazzaville. Meanwhile, Babina Nogo targets another victory against Yakati Yamama when they close the group stage curtain. This is the CAF Confederation Cup. Catch Diable Noir FC and Sekhukhune United FC on Sunday 3 March at 6 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
17 minutes now to 7, the time you know the number. Well, the Mopani District Municipality in Limpopo, they're warning residents who've dug boreholes in their backyards to be very careful about the water. The water in that area, it turns out, contains arsenic. People who there have complained about trying to get water, and in fact the municipality's also dug boreholes to bolster water supplies. Odasan Gabani is the spokesperson for the Mopani District Municipality in Limpopo. Odas, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning to you, Stevens, and to the listeners of the Sunrise Show.
How dangerous is this water? How bad is it?
Look, Stephen, we want to indicate that there is a study that was released, which, of course, as much as we do not want to dispute the findings, we do find it a bit difficult to agree with some of the findings because the Mopani District Municipality does a test on all of the boreholes that we drill across the district, and we have not found anything that suggests that the water is dangerous. For instance, with regard to arsenic, you need to have a arsenic level that is just below 0.01 microgram when you do the test. And what we've done ourselves in all of the bowls that we've drilled, particularly where the study was done in Greater Guyana, we found that it is actually less than that. So the water is indeed safe for people to drink. It may be that when the study was done, it could have been done not in the bowls that we have drilled ourselves as a district municipality, and that is what we have said even in the article that was published yesterday.
Okay, so you're saying, so we've got you do your own testing. How often are you doing your own testing at the moment to make sure the water is safe?
We do testing in areas where we have reticulation network. We do testing every month. We have around 105 testing points across the district. In Greater Guyana alone, we have 18 testing points. We do the testing every month, and the results shows that the water is good for human consumption. Of course, even before we commission a bowl, we hand over a bowl to a community. We do the sampling, the test, to show that indeed the water is safe for drinking. That is why we're saying we do not want to dispute the study, but we find it difficult because we do this test in line with the SANS 241 standards.
So those are the boreholes that you have dug. They're boreholes that other people have dug in their back gardens and things. Do you believe that actually that water might have a problem? Do you know? I mean, it can be hard to know.
Look, it is very difficult to say that it could be dangerous, even because, of course, the Greater Guyana municipal area has some mines, and that is why the study will be talking about high concentration of arsenic, which we are not necessarily disputing. What we are not agreeing with is that the water is not safe for human consumption, and that is why we are backing that up with the tests and the samples that we have done and will continue to do on a regular basis, especially on the bowls that we have drilled ourselves. So we can, of course, take this opportunity to just caution individuals who have drilled bowls to just take an extra precaution by making sure that they do the test for the water that they have drilled.
All of this, I mean, people are using boreholes because there aren't proper water supplies there, and that's because that there hasn't been proper water from the Giyani water system. And there's supposed to be a pipeline from the Nandoni Dam to the Nsami Dam in Giyani. And I think the Nandoni Dam is actually full at the moment. How long is it going to take for all of this to be sorted out? I mean, you need that pipeline to work. You need it to work quickly.
Look, Stephen, there's been massive progress that has been recorded, especially when we have the Minister Mchunu coming into the ministry. The pipeline from Nandoni to Giyani, it's already there, completed. There's just work that we're doing on the water treatment works. We needed to refurbish the water treatment works to be able to cope with the demand. The district municipality has been doing water reticulations in the first 24 villages that are supposed to benefit. And in terms of the target, we should be complete. We should have done the first 24 villages at least by end of April. And the minister, I think in the next 2 weeks, will be coming to be monitoring the progress. So there has been progress, and that progress has been agitated since the arrival of Minister Mchunu into the department.
Odasun Gabeni, thank you. Spokesperson for the Mopani District Municipality in Limpopo. In a moment, the COSATU General Secretary. It's 12 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're leaving the busy Midrand area, Olifantsfontein Road across towards Lever is quite heavy. Possibly traffic light issues there this morning. But coming from Blue Hills through Savannah Hills towards the highway, there's very heavy backlogs. Traffic lights out all over Malabongwe Drive, so through North Riding, noticeably busy. And the lights are still out on the exit from Rampark Ridge. Hunt Schumann down at Rabi. They've been down for a long time, and you're convoying slowly on your way towards Stanton. Durban, we've been warning about this, and it is starting to build up. The M7 towards the Bel Air Wakesley Junction. Traffic just starting to push back beyond the N2, complicated by a collision and the roadworks as you turn off the M7 onto Bel Air Road, which is already queuing up towards Chief Albert Lutuli Hospital. Looks okay. Pietermaritzburg to Durban, no major problems on that often busy route through. Cape Town fairly slow. The N1 from Belleville through towards the Kuberg interchange is the volume of traffic. There are some queues at Khayelitsha on the N2, just up towards the R300. Then it gets heavy from the airport all the way through to Mowbray Main, and still traffic light issues plaguing Mitchell's Plains exits on Jakes Curville, the M7 and the R300. Both of those routes remain under pressure and slow going, heading out of Mitchell's Plain towards the Samora, Michelle and Philippi side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
10 minutes to 7. Unions say they're growing more and more worried about how many mining companies are now cutting jobs. Amplat saying it'll cut around 3,900 jobs. Other mines doing the same thing. One of the problems has been the issues at Transnet. Coal producers say they've had to cut jobs because they simply cannot move the coal they've mined to the coast to be exported. Last night, the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan confirmed they've appointed Michelle Phillips as the new CEO at Transnet and Osipo Mapondo as the new Chief Financial Officer. Solly Petre is the General Secretary of the Congress of South African Trade Unions. Mr. Petre, good morning and thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners.
Firstly, the appointment of Michelle Phillips as the new Transnet CEO. Business says they're very pleased at her appointment. As organised labour, do you believe she's the right person to do the job at Transnet, which will help your workers in the longer run?
Well, unfortunately, when he was appointed, we were not consulted. I'm not sure about our unions that are recognized in Transnet, whether they were consulted or not. But then we have not seen, personally, I've not seen the CV of that new CEO. But we hope that anybody who's appointed would have capacity, have qualities, have got experience, would have to have a responsibility to make sure that he turn around Transnet. As you said, Transnet has created a serious problem in both in transport and also in the mining industry. As you said, that the mining companies are facing challenges in terms of transporting coal for them to be exported outside the country. So the issue of the unemployment rate, it has been increased due to some of these challenges that we're facing in Transnet.
The mines that are cutting jobs, how worried are you? I mean, we're seeing declining numbers of people being employed in the mining industry at the moment.
We are very, very, very worried. When the listings of the 3.9 by Anglo Platts statement was issued publicly, we had to get our unions that are affiliated to COSATU to engage on these matters. And we found that it's not only that Anglo-Plus, a number of mines in Northern Cape, in Mpumalanga provinces who are facing that challenges. And we thought that in an engagement with the Mining Mineral Council was that, can we engage this matter before we reach the stage where we said where you decide to retrench and give Section 189. Let's find another avenues. Let's find other opportunities. Let's find other suggestions before we can go to that route. Because in terms of the Labor Relations Act, also Section 189 should be the last resort after you have put some proposals. So we're very worried about the retrenchment or the issue of the unemployment rate that is very high in South Africa. This is one of the critical issues that we debated in our last 3 days Central Executive Committee. And we think that going to the meeting with our government, we would want to request that government must also chip in terms of intensify assisting some of this mining, but also making sure that, as we indicated, the issue of Transnet, which is one of the costs in the mining industry, should be taken very seriously.
Anglo-American Platinum, they're cutting jobs, but they're also giving, I think it's 6 billion rand back to shareholders as dividends. I mean, can they really justify that? Cutting jobs and yet giving a huge amount of money to the owners of the mine.
This is what we raised. That initially we're told that Anglo-Plat is cutting jobs because they are not making profit. But when we heard about this things of giving some dividend to the shareholders, we then ask the question: how do you give so much to the shareholders as dividends? Then the other side, you're complaining about not making profits. That's why we said let's get in the discussion. Because as I said, the Section 189 in terms of the labor relations, it does also require that employers or companies must prove that they are not making profit, and therefore they can't be they are being forced to retrench. And we also said that companies that they are raising issues about not making profit, they should ask for relief. They should ask to go to the IDC and request an assistance. But some of these companies, to confirm that is not true that they are not making profit, they refuse to disclose their financial statement. And this issue of Anglo-Plat is also a worrying thing, and that's what we said to the national leadership of the National Mine Workers and other unions. In the engagement, let them prove that they are not making profit.
I mean, we used to have, in the 1980s, I think 1 million people worked in the mines. It's now around 440,000. I mean, we're seeing mining as an employer disappearing in front of us.
No, they are disappearing in front of us because of some lack of capacity, some of dishonesty of the mines, but also the issue that we've raised caused by the austerity measures, but also this issue of saying that people are not making profit, which is not true, but also the issue that has been happening in the entire economic crisis that we're facing in South Africa.
You might have seen, and the other things that are happening at the moment, Mr. Petrie, you might have seen the reports, for example, that police officers have had to leave the Telkom Towers building yesterday, the big police headquarters in Tshwane, because the building is unsafe. The SA Air Force has had to evacuate its building too, also because it's unsafe. This meant people were working in temperatures inside a building of above 40 degrees Celsius. Are you worried about workers in some of these big buildings? Both these cases, these are government buildings. Some of them at least will be your members. A large number might be your members. Now, are you worried about them having to work in unsafe buildings?
Definitely. We're very worried. That's why we're continuing to fight with the Minister of Labour or the Department of Employment and Labour about the amendment on the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which has been concluded at NETLAC in 2016. Until today, has not been finalized by government. It has been taken back to appoint certain subcommittees to deal with some 4 issues, but it has taken long. We're very worried about the health and safety of our people, because in the Mining Health and Safety Act, it does allow workers to refuse to work in unsafe areas. But the accident that has been happening in the mining industry has been very too much for us in South Africa. But for other private sectors, like the government building, like what has been happening in Johannesburg, where some of the building have been caught by fire due to the negligence or due to non-compliance in terms of occupational health and safety. We're very worried, and that's why we really want the amendment of that occupational health and safety must be concluded to protect the life of workers, but also to protect the employers also. And some of the companies, when we're doing an assessment with the occupational health and safety, some of the companies do not appoint health and safety committee, and they don't. If they appoint them to push their own agenda, not the agenda of making sure that all workers, including employers, managers, their safety at the workplace. So this issue of workplace is a very, 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 very of non-compliance on the Occupational Safety Act is one of the campaigns that COSATU is leading, and is one of the campaigns that will end up taking the straight in making sure that all workers are safe in South Africa.
And Mr. Petrie, I must ask you about your relationship with the ANC. Over the weekend, I saw COSATU strongly supporting the ANC's election manifesto. You say you support the ANC in this election. Just 18 months ago, it was 2022, I mean, your members heckled, they booed when Gwede Mantashe was supposed to speak at a COSATU conference. What changed? What did the ANC has changed since when your members booed the chair of the ANC, and now when you're supporting the ANC in elections again?
No. The issue of Gwede Mantashe being booed or the ANC person being booed at the Congress of COSATU has been discussed by COSATU and the leadership of the alliance. And issues that the workers were raising were in the process. We have not finalized them, but we are in the process of finalizing that discussion. And in our engagement, the ANC will recall that in the January statement, the president of the ANC made a public statement that as the ANC government, they are going to respect the collective bargaining with all sectors, not only in the public service, but all sectors. The ANC government is going to make sure that they respect the collective bargaining, they respect the rights of the workers. So that's what has changed, and that's what workers feel, and that's what we are saying in terms of that. This ANC is the alliance between the ANC is not for the purpose of being friendship, it's for the purpose of making sure that the rights of the workers, in particular COSATU, the rights of the workers are respected by everybody.
Solly Petrie, thank you for the time, sir. General Secretary of the Congress of South African Trade Unions. More in a moment about peanut butter. More concerns about that, it now seems. Also the issue around Eswatini police. We'll speak to them about the extradition of 2 people still wanted there, being held there for the murders of AKA and Tibbs Motswane, and the situation around coalitions. You're with SFM leading the conversation. It's 7 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
And top stories this hour: AK murder suspects who appear in court, and Godan fills Transnet positions. Good morning. 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan AK Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Motswane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Forbes and Motswane were shot dead in Durban last year. Nonjabulo Mdungwa Magamu reports.
The breakthrough in the high-profile case was announced by Police Minister Bheki Cele at a media briefing in Durban on Tuesday night. A 7th arrest was made just yesterday. Police have confirmed that Forbes was the main target, saying that several of the suspects have been linked to prior cases. 2 of the suspects who were arrested in Eswatini at the weekend are yet to be extradited.
Mpumalanga Education MEC Bonagele Majuba has sent condolences to the families of the 2 teachers who died in a crash along the N4 road towards Mbombela yesterday. The Mpumalanga Education Department says the teachers were on their way back from a Mathematics, Science and Technology Academy training session at Emalahleni when the crash occurred. MEC Majuba is expected to visit the schools and the deceased families this morning. The teachers are from Masitake and Dikontele secondary schools in the Entlazeni district. The family of a grade 9 learner who died after eating suspected contaminated food at a village outside Mokopane in Limpopo is demanding justice. 15-year-old Machweni Siema from Raleledu Senior Secondary School had been admitted at the hospital after eating food at the school. 52 other learners were treated and discharged. Family spokesperson Matlakala Siema says they want the education authorities to investigate the incident.
We want justice and answers from the Department of Education. The department must do investigations into what caused our child's death so that we can have closure.
And in our election-related news, IFP leader Velenkosini Hlabisa has slammed the ANC-led government for load shedding. Hlabisa was speaking at a multi-party charter press briefing held outside the Kelvin Power Station in Kempton Park, where the multi-party coalition shared its plans of ending the country's power crisis. The IFP leader says load shedding is ravaging the country's economy.
Let us be clear, the ANC has destroyed South Africa's energy security through 3 decades of bad policy decisions, lack of planning, state capture, corruption, and mismanagement of Eskom. Load shedding is devastating South Africa's economy.
The Democratic Alliance in Mpumalanga has threatened to open a criminal case against the executive mayor of Nkomazi, Phindile Makagula. This comes after Makagula was allegedly found to have illegally connected electricity in her home in Aniva near Kamhlushwa. The DA says Makagula must pay for all the months she has been using illegal electricity. The party spokesperson, Trudy Grove Morgan.
A woman of her caliber, we do not expect her to do such a criminal thing of connecting illegally, as she knows that there is a problem in the municipalities. Most of them, especially in Nkomazi as well, is bankrupt. They are not even able to pay Eskom what they owe Eskom. And then she promotes illegal connections. Politicians cannot get away with this, and she has to pay for all the months that she has been using illegal electricity. Because how can the ordinary person in the street be punished?
And recapping our top story this hour, 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Debelo Tibbs Motswane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. I'll be back with the headlines at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I am Nomalizo Mandela.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's rugby and the Blitzboks are in camp ahead of the LA Sevens tomorrow, with James Murphy being linked up with the team. And we also have Formula One news. Red Bull boss Christian Horner cleared of inappropriate behavior. The details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's pretty heavy, pretty thick across all lanes of the M1 South, coming out of Pretoria down to Joburg this morning, from Brockfontein interchange all the way down to a new road. No major issues, but just a whole pile of traffic moving slowly. Off the highway, some load shedding around Irene, so the big four-way, Nalmapius and Main, as you can imagine, as you know, if you go through that junction through load shedding, it all gets very busy, and it already is. Malabongwe Drive, North Riding through to Stratham Park via the highway. highways quite heavy as well. Lots of traffic lights down forever on Malabongwe Drive. Now, Durban's M7, again, another busy one. Fourth morning in a row where you sit from Queensborough down towards the roadworks at Bel Air Road Junction. So the traffic are really struggling to get off the M7 and get in to the Bel Air Road. The roadworks up by Chief Albalatuli, queuing traffic right back through the M7 and back onto Wakesley Road. So if you use that Wakesley Bel Air up towards Rick Turner, it is a very busy run through this morning. Cape Town, still no traffic lights. M7R300, the run out of Mitchell's Plain stays busy. M3 coming in from the south is a little bit different this morning. There's quite heavy pressure up towards Weinberg Hill. Normally that traffic extends through to Paradise Road, but it looks like something right at the top of Weinberg Hill causing a delay. And some hold-ups on Milnerton's Marine Drive through Woodbridge Island. Traffic queuing down towards Lagoon Beach Junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
You with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Critters. Good morning. Lots to come. We'll talk about peanut butter. We'll talk about to the National Consumer Commission. They're very worried about alpha-toxin, which is the sort of naturally occurring mold, but seems to be having an impact in some brands. An update from the police in Eswatini. They're holding two of the people who have been accused of being involved in the murder of AKA and Tibbs Motswani. And then coalitions. Professor William Gomede, he's been very involved in all of this. He suggests that actually around the country in most places, coalitions are working well. Well, I'll ask him why he believes that. 8 minutes after 7.
Gauteng MEC for Finance, Jacob Mamabolo, will present the budget to the legislature on the 5th of March at 10 a.m. The MEC will reflect on how public funds were used in the last 5 years to provide services to the people. He will further outline the priorities of the Gauteng government and how the budget will be allocated to support economic growth, create jobs, fight crime, and improve the living conditions of people in the townships, informal settlements, and hostels. This message is brought to you by the Gauteng Provincial Government, growing Gauteng together.
ES Tunis is adamant a win is non-negotiable in front of their home fans against the Sudanese Giants. Meanwhile, Al Hilal is inspired that the best conclusion of the group stage is to triumph on foreign ground. This is the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis clashes with Al Hilal on Saturday 2 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
9 after 7, good morning. Well, the National Consumer Commission asking all manufacturers of peanuts and products containing peanuts, including obviously peanut butter, to test their products to make sure they haven't been contaminated by alpha-toxin. Alpha-toxin occurs naturally. It's a sort of mold, but it can be harmful over a long period. Over the last 2 weeks, several brands of peanut butter have been recalled because they have high levels of this stuff. The acting commissioner at the National Consumer Commission is Tezi Mabuza. Acting Commissioner, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners.
What are you actually asking manufacturers to do?
We are asking manufacturers to test their products that are already on the shelves. And then if they find that the aflatoxins levels are higher, we would require of them to remove them from the shelves, inform regulators. That would mean it will be the Department of Health and ourselves, and then from there inform the consumers as well.
Are you able to do testing yourself, or do you rely on the manufacturers?
We rely on the manufacturers, but then we have also our own kind of like cooperation agreements with some of the testers like the South African Bureau of Standards and some of the labs. But then we rely on the Department of Health because that is their responsibility in terms of making sure that those premises that produces those that would be producing any product that contains peanuts would be supposed to be having what we call a hazard analysis critical control point certificates. They are supposed to be ensuring that that happens regularly. So they have that responsibility. And then if we have those results, we share them with them as well. But then if we are in doubt, we would actually go into our cooperation with other testing agencies to assist us.
Okay, this all started with a couple of brands of peanut butter. They're very specific brands. Now it seems to be spreading. I mean, there was ice cream this week as well. Are you worried that something else has gone wrong in the manufacturing process somewhere involving all things that include peanuts?
We think that, yes, indeed, something went wrong as early as last year from either the nuts themselves, wherein they were either imported or maybe when they were transported, or where they were stored. It could be silos or where they were stored, wherein something went wrong. Either there was moisture or uncontrolled temperatures. For now, that's what we are investigating. But what worries us the most, Stephen, is that we think that there are some shared facilities wherein now even the manufacturer that is actually in question here is sharing facilities with other producers. So we wanted to get to the point of understanding who are those other manufacturers that are sharing the facility. Hence, we are also investigating the facility itself so that we can have more information. But then we expect that as well, those retailers, they know exactly who their manufacturers, because they're supposed to have some kind of like an understanding of the value chain, starting from where the nuts are coming from, where they are produced, and if there are distributors in between, they would know exactly who are those distributors. So, and from themselves as well, they were supposed to actually know at that point when they get each and every batch, because it's supposed to be tested. Because indeed, we have what we call mandatory standards wherein they cannot actually exceed a particular level. Because we know that aflatoxins, they are not only in groundnuts. You have them in maize, you have them in rice, you have them in beans. Hence, then they have to be controlled. That level that has to be contained in each foodstuff has to be controlled.
For the moment, I imagine there's a lot of peanut butter still on the shelves. If you go to, let's just say, a big brand supermarket, let me call it that, and you see peanut butter there, do you think it's still safe to buy it?
For now, we are getting some of the results from some of the brands wherein they have confirmed, they are confirming that from February they started testing. So that would mean that if they are still there in the shelves, we believe that those brands, owners, and also the retailers, they believe that those are safe. It's what they are saying to us, they are safe. That's why they are there. But then we want them to satisfy us by giving us their results, especially those in February for the batches that are still in the shelf, so that we can confidently now say to consumers, yes, so and so did supply that. Some of the results are trickling in. Yes, indeed, we have, I think up to now, yesterday, we had about 12 suppliers already out of the 47 that we had sent. So we are waiting for them to actually speed up that process, because we have given them 14 days to really respond and satisfy us on that.
Acting Commissioner, thank you. Tezi Mabuza is the Acting Commissioner at the National Consumer Commission.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, later this morning, 5 of the 7 people arrested for their involvement in the murder of AKA Kiernan Forbes and Tabelo Motswane are due to appear in the Magistrates Court in Durban. The police have said they won't rule out making more arrests. The police, Mr. Begicele, says they believe they now have the shooters, the spotters, and crucially, the coordinator. They have not yet said who the funder was or who ordered the hit. 2 of the suspects in these murders are currently in jail in Eswatini. They will have to be extradited here. Nosipho Mnguni is the Deputy Police Chief and the Informations and Communications Officer and an Assistant Superintendent in the Eswatini Police. Assistant Superintendent, good morning, and thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning. Good morning very much.
What can you tell us about the 2 people that you've arrested, the 2 people that you're holding? Why were they arrested?
Thank you very much. In Eswatini, the Royal Eswatini Police Service arrested 2 suspects, aged 28 and 29, who happened to be South African nationals. According to our knowledge, these 2 suspects are wanted in South Africa. The Royal Eswatini Police Service has documents we have documents in our possession stating that these suspects are in the South African Police Service radar for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and illegal possession of firearms. However, we cannot commit ourselves into greater issues concerning these cases because we do not really know, and it is not in our jurisdiction to say what murder cases or what conspiracy to commit murder cases they have been involved in. But as far as we know, the SAPS is looking for these suspects. Hence, we were able to arrest them, and we at the moment we are processing their extradition so that they can go back and face their matters.
Are there any other people who you think may be in Eswatini who might be involved in this that you're looking for? Have our police maybe given you information about another person they believe might be in Eswatini?
For now, I may not really have that. I may not be privy to that information. But then what I know is our police service, with that of SAPS, and not only SAPS, but other neighboring countries, we are always in a relationship whereby once we have suspects that we suspect have run away from our native countries, of course, we flag out through our Interpol, which is the International Police Organization. And then hence we are able to work hand in hand in trying to get those suspects and then probably return them to their native countries where they are being sought.
Okay. And they don't face any crimes or any charges in Eswatini, the 2 people now. They don't face any charges there, right? There's not going to be a delay because of that.
Currently, we did try that. We did charge them with illegally being in the country illegally because they did not have the proper papers that allow them to be in the country. So in that matter, the court will have to try them for that. But we do hope that there will be no delay once the process of extradition has taken place and has been finalized.
Okay, so you might be presented. I mean, you can't speak for the people who make these decisions, I don't think, or maybe you can. But you could deport these 2 back to South Africa if they entered Eswatini illegally, or you could extradite them. In our system, when you go through an extradition process, there's actually a court hearing. Are you expecting a court hearing, or could they just be deported back to South Africa? You tell our police officers, look, we're going to deport them. They're going to be dropped off at this border post and they'll be there for you. I mean, you could do that probably more quickly.
Yes, you are correct. But then as it stands, we are in the process of extraditing them to South Africa. So everything is now with the court. And then once everything has been sorted out, they will definitely be taken back to South Africa with the SAPS on board.
Thank you very much indeed. Nosipho Mnguni is the Deputy Chief of Police for Information and Communications and Assistant Superintendent in the Royal Swazi Police. It's 19 minutes after 7.
Catch the Insider SA this Monday evening at 6 as international dance sensation Musa Mota fires the imagination of millions. Film star Zandile Mhlangu brings the action off screen as much as on. And of all the wedding venues in the world, why did Dr. Carly Andringa and Paul van Dyk choose Antarctica? Find out on the Insider SA this Monday at 6. Repeat Saturday at 1 p.m. and Sunday morning at 10:30 on S3.
USM Alger want to finish their Group A matters on a high note, while Matsatsansa Pitori target an away victory to travel back to Mzansi's capital city with pride. This is the CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the beauty of African football. USM Alger FC takes on Supersport United FC on Sunday, 3 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Agenda-setting conversations of the day.
20 minutes after 7, good morning. More focus again on the issues around coalition governments this week. The SA Local Government Association has been holding a conference with the United Nations Development Programme around this. Meanwhile, the person who's been working with the multi-party charter movement to try and negotiate, let me call it for the moment, a sort of coalition of these parties. It includes the DA, the IFP, Action SA. They've said that instead of changing the laws around coalition, we need to change the culture around coalition. Professor William Gumede also says that proposals to enforce a threshold before a party can enter a council or parliament are undemocratic, and there should not be a new limit on the number of times a party could bring a vote of confidence. Well, Professor Gumede is the founder and chair of Democracy Works. He joins us now. He, of course, is playing a role within this group of parties. Professor Gumede, good morning and thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners. Very happy to speak to you this morning.
You've said that you believe in most municipalities in South Africa with coalition governments, they're working quite well. I live in a metro governed by a coalition. I can see how often the water doesn't work and how there's so many potholes everywhere. Why do you believe coalition governments are actually... Oh, dear. Let's see if Professor Gumede is still with us. Professor Gumede, are you there? All right, we seem to have lost him, I think.
Yes. I'm with you. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, I'm with you.
Okay. I was making the point, you say coalitions in most municipalities seem to be working well. I was saying in the metro that I live in, there's water all over the place because it's not managed properly. There are potholes everywhere. Why do you believe coalitions are working?
If we look away from some of the spectacular failures at the big metros. Then you see the smaller metros in coalitions have actually been working, whereas pre-2016 local government election or after the 2016 local government election. So the big metros in our face, where most of us live, many of them are failing. But on average, many of the other coalition governments at municipal level it's actually working. So the majority of these municipalities are actually working. But obviously, our big metros and some of the big rural towns run by coalitions are much more in the media than those that are working.
So the places that are working, could we take some of the sort of culture, if I can call it that, from there, the political culture, and bring that to the bigger places?
Yes, absolutely. I think the first thing is, we as a country, we'll have to build coalition governance culture, or you have to change our political culture. And one element of that change really is what we need to do is have much more mature political leaders generally. Now, we know that's in short supply. I'll just take, one reason, for example, many of these municipalities in coalitions why they fail is, parties leave for very superficial reasons, or because, they're attracted by another party through patronage, for example. Or secondly, you get your leaders govern in the interests in their own personal interests rather than in the town's interests or the municipalities' interests. And often sort of the third part of our culture, our political culture, is that the public service is not a merit-based, it's not a professional one. So even if a council collapses, it cannot, our local government doesn't continue. Now, in other countries, even if a coalition doesn't work out or they take a long time to put a coalition together, your town or even your country functions properly because there is a professional public service.
The ANC and the DA both seem to agree on a couple of big changes. So they say, for example, a party has to get above 1% or 5% before you can get into a council and parliament. And in Joburg right now, there are 7 parties that have 1 seat each, which can lead to real chaos. So the idea from the bigger parties is if you basically remove the smaller parties, you wouldn't have this instability. You believe that's wrong?
Yes, from a democratic point of view, obviously, it's a very good proposal, but I mean, from a democratic point of view, I think it would be unconstitutional. I think what we rather should look at is at minority governments, allowing a minority government, to continue. So let's say a government doesn't get to 50%, or there's a coalition, and one of the parties leaves superficially for spurious reasons. That a minority government continues to govern. Now, that happens in many countries, from Sweden to Canada, and it happens at a local, city level, or at a country level. So I think that's a much better route to take, because we have to be careful. We have to introduce legislation, but legislation mustn't be unconstitutional or deprive, or it mustn't deprive,
Professor Gomeda, are you still with us? Oh, dearie me. All right, I think we've lost Professor Gomeda there, unfortunately. There's scope for a much bigger conversation around all of this, of course. We've had some conversations with other people around all of this, but certainly principles and policies that we need to look at around coalition governments. It does seem that there's actually quite a lot of sort of agreement on some measures. The question, of course, is whether would everybody agree to these measures or not? So we need to look at that. And as you know, changing a political culture, if that is the problem, can actually be very, very difficult to do. All right, more on that. We'll speak to the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Toko Dudiza, in the next half an hour. She's been meeting with King Msizuluka Zweletini. You're with SFM, leading the conversation, just coming up now to 27 minutes after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. What's happening in the sevens?
Well, the battling Blitz Box are bringing in reinforcements. James Murphy has been linked up with the 7 squad in the USA as they prepare for the HSBC Sevens Los Angeles, and that's from tomorrow to Sunday. Murphy will replace Ricardo Duarte, who returned to South Africa after the HSBC Sevens in Vancouver, and that was due to personal reasons. Here's James Murphy.
I love the boys here. They're my best mates away from home. So, for me, I just be myself, be as natural as I can and slot in with the guys. It's just so great to be here, and it's very easy to be myself and bring energy when the guys are feeding it to me as well. Yeah, obviously consistency is definitely the name of the game for this weekend. We really want to strive to chase that. We've been really putting in the effort, really trying hard, and at some stage those rewards will come. And I really believe that the boys have been working hard. So looking forward to it.
Let's go now to the other soccer story that's making news. Cameroonian Football Federation President Samuel Eto'o says Rigobert Song has left his job as the Cameroon head coach. Cameroon were knocked out of the Africa Cup of Nations in the last 16 in January by the eventual runners-up Nigeria. Song, a former international teammate of Eto'o, was appointed as Cameroon boss in February 2022. He helped the Indomitable Lions to a dramatic playoff victory over Algeria in extra time to qualify for the Qatar World Cup. But the 5-time African champions Cameroon were dumped out in the group stage despite a surprise victory over Brazil in their final game. Former Liverpool midfielder Song only won 6 of his 23 matches in charge. Elsewhere, the Florida-based entrepreneur Shailen Patel completed his takeover of the championship promotion chasers West Brom with the deal already approved by the English Premier League. West Brom are 5th in the championship table as they eye a playoff place. Meanwhile, the great rivals Manchester United and Liverpool, they'll meet in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, while Manchester City will continue its defence of the trophy with the home match, and that's against Newcastle. Now, Liverpool beat Southampton 3-0, and that was in the 5th round. Closer to action at home, we saw SuperSport United's Lila Kay breaking Cape Town City's hearts with that late equaliser. Sekhukhune also winning their game against Golden Arrows, and thanks to a late goal of their own. Let's go to motorsport news. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner has been cleared following an internal investigation into his behaviour towards a female colleague. Allegations of inappropriate and controlling behaviour have been made against the 50-year-old. Horner, who has led Red Bull since 2005, denied the allegations. He will remain in his role as team principal and chief executive of Red Bull F1. Now, the Red Bull, as well as the rest of the Formula One squad, will take to the Bahrain Grand Prix, which will start this weekend. We'll bring you more sport here on Sunrise. Headlines top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Stage 2, forecast for all day, 7:30.
And in the headlines, 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan A.K. Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Matane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. In other news, the Huguenot Tunnel that was closed due to the mountain fire at Du Toit's Kloof near Paarl outside Cape Town is now open on both directions. This is good progress is made in extinguishing the fire. And Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has announced the appointment of Nosipho Maphumulo as the Group Chief Financial Officer, along with that of Michelle Phillips as Transnet's new Group Chief Executive Officer. More on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Extra busy around the Irene side of Centurion. A dose of load shedding there until 8 this morning. So Main and Nell Mapius all approaches fairly heavily backed up. N4 going into Pretoria on the Emeleth Highway. Going to be asked to sit in traffic this morning. Queues back from Vardemar Street right through to about Rousseau Street. So from Rousseau Street down towards the N1, the N4 backed up heavily. It can be like that on a Thursday morning. If you've been through it, you'll know what's ahead. Durban, major delays around the roadworks on Bel Air Road at Chief Albert Lutuli Hospital. The backlog starts right deep on Wakesley Road up through the M7 and on to Bel Air Road. Southbound from Rick Turner, it's all fairly heavy as well at peak times. And the other big impact is this M7. It's the fourth consecutive morning you said coming from Queensborough, trying to get through the bluff down to the Bel Air Road. Congestion really is very heavy. The M13 through Central Pinetown, St John's Avenue down towards the works at the N3, Paradise Valley, heavier than normal. And there's queues on the N2 southbound from Schlanga, moving down into Virginia Airport. That's on the M4, the Ruth First Highway. Mount Frere looking okay this morning. No repeats of any protesting on the N2. We saw that yesterday, the taxi associations protesting, but Mount Frere looks clear this morning. Cathcart also looks clear, but you need to be vigilant driving through Cathcart. It's sporadic protesting. It can happen without notice. Cape Town side, bit of traffic around the Constantia area this morning. M3 is heavy to Paradise Road, coming up past Kirstenbosch on Rhodes Drive. There's a big backlog of traffic there as well. And a crash on the N7 south between Plattercliff and Bosmansdam Road means a delay in queues back towards the Dunoon area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mostly up. Inflation data in the US will be released later today. The inflation data is likely to have an impact on the outlook for interest rates. US central bank officials have said they need greater confidence that inflation is reducing before they can cut interest rates. So investors are anticipating the inflation data. Before the US market opens later today, the US futures market is mostly up. NASDAQ, Dow Jones and S&P futures are each up 0.1%. In Asian markets, China's Shanghai Composite is up 0.7%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is up 0.2%. And Japan's Nikkei is down 0.1%. And our local market, the JSE, was down 1.3% yesterday. The shares of retail and mining companies were mostly down.
And Canal Plus, they've been ordered to make a mandatory offer to shareholders at MultiChoice.
Yeah, the potential buyout of MultiChoice by French broadcaster Canal Plus is not off the table. South Africa's Takeover Regulation Panel is a watchdog on company deals. The panel has now ruled that Canal Plus is required to make an offer to immediately buy shares of MultiChoice that it does not already own. Canal Plus already owns 35% of MultiChoice. This is just above the threshold that would require Canal Plus to make a mandatory offer to MultiChoice shareholders to buy 65% of their shares. Earlier this month, the board of MultiChoice rejected the offer by Canal Plus to buy the local broadcaster for 32 billion rand. The board said this offer is too low and Canal Plus might now sweeten its offer.
And then Pick n Pay is applying to liquidate the 19 stores that belong to a franchisee. It's quite a dispute, this.
Yeah, the retailer is in a dispute with a business owner who owns and runs Pick n Pay stores under a franchise agreement. John Baladakis has been a Pick n Pay franchisee for 3 decades and operates 19 Pick n Pay stores in the East Rand. Baladakis apparently owes Pick n Pay more than 200 million rand in franchise fees, so the dispute landed in court. And Pick n Pay has won. Pick n Pay will now move to liquidate the 19 stores to recover the millions of rands it is owed. Pick n Pay is a creditor, and the liquidation of those 19 stores could lead to the loss of 650 jobs.
Ray Machlaka, thanks very much indeed. Ray, of course, back tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, good to hear from you this morning. Obviously, the story this morning around AKA and Tibbs Motswane, the alleged killers, the people arrested for the murders, will be in court this morning. Your views on that? Transnet's got a new CEO, Michelle Phillips. Kasatu also telling us why they're still supporting the ANC. Government buildings, I mean, look what's happened to the police building, the Air Force building, having to be evacuated because they're just not safe. And then Samuel yesterday throwing trash into the streets in eThekwini in that strike. Chris and Peter Maritzburg. Chris, hi, mining, go for it.
Yes, I think you let off the Secretary of COSATU off the hook easily on the issue of job losses. Because my point is, see, COSATU demands that mines employ workers as they always did, without appreciation of the changes in technology and the advances in technology, and the need to reskill the workers so that they can fit into the current job demands of mines. That, I think, is an issue that is always left, because if the only thing you think workers must do is to go down and dig, when there is now technology in this era, you're honestly disservicing your workers. I think there's a bigger discussion, especially now, with such a young, highly educated, relatively highly educated workforce in the mining sector, to say, how do we advance ourselves so that we meet like countries like Australia, where technology is the order of the day in mining, so that we don't see the current job losses. And also appreciate the whole value chain of mines. Mining value chain is not going down and digging only. There's quite a lot that has to happen.
No, sure. I mean, it's interesting, though, because, mechanization, which is sort of what you're talking about, does mean fewer jobs in the longer run. I mean, I can't see how you get around that.
Yes, it's true. It honestly doesn't mean. Who fixes the machine when it goes down? And people can be reskilled. I honestly think that unions are disservicing their members in this regard.
All right, Chris and Peter Maritzburg, thank you. Gift in the Eastern Cape. Gift, hi. Also, just a reminder, spokesperson for the ANC. Gift, good morning. Coalitions. As the ANC, you're not a big fan, eh?
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners. Look, just to respond to some of the issues that were raised by Professor Kumele, I agree partly. But I think, Stephen, to me, coalition agreements by municipalities, those that are in local government, should be made public, Stephen.
Yeah.
But also, whilst not legally binding, the agreements does provide a mechanism for voters to hold the governing coalition accountable when it's broken, but also the constituencies are able to see what has been agreed upon by the partners. And this can also help manage the expectations when some of the deliverables are not achieved by the coalition. But most importantly, Stephen, you will notice that in most instances, voters are in the dark about the agreement that has been agreed upon by those political parties in that coalition government. And look, for instance, I'm a Nelson Mandela ratepayer, and I have no clue of what was agreed upon by the current coalition. And I'm raising this deliberately, Stephen, because once upon a time, I think it was a month back, there were blockages and there was water outages in an area called Kariega, formerly known as Utnik, mostly in the townships of Utnik. And communities there were up in arms, chasing councillors of the ANC to say why there's no water. And strangely, the MMC was responsible for water is not coming from the ANC, although ANC is part of that coalition.
Yeah.
It's coming from another party, and that councillor is not there. So to me, coalition must be based on a common program that focuses on measurable targets to service delivery. But most importantly, coalition partners must commit themselves to shared values, to stability, to accountability, to ethics, to integrity, to community participation, to good governance, to the respect of the Constitution and the respect of law. I'm raising this deliberately, Stephen, because I always ponder a question that why one party with one seat will demand a mayorship? Why one party with one seat will demand a service deliverable portfolio like your infrastructure or your electricity, but this particular party has got only one seat? I'm making this deliberately, this example, because in Nelson Mandela, for instance, ANC has got only human settlements and budget and treasury and corporate services, but all other key service delivery portfolios are with those parties with one or two seats, and that does not serve the ANC, to be quite honestly, because it disadvantages our communities, and you don't see
clearing service delivery in the townships of Nelson Mandela, including Gqeberha and Kariega.
Yeah. All right, no, Gift, I hear you on the line from the Eastern Cape there. It's interesting. I mean, I think it's hard to disagree with the idea that there should be properly public agreements. We should know why people are working together and be able to judge them on what they say they're going to do. So far, it hasn't quite happened like that, but it might. 19 minutes to 8.
Imagine if you could save time like you save money. A second here, a minute there. Type a little faster, walk a little faster. Or you could stop scrolling on the internet. Just think of all the hours you'll save. Now, what if you could take all that time and invest it? Watch it grow. Until eventually, one day, you'd have so much time that you wouldn't know what to do with it all. But unfortunately, time doesn't work like that. It can't be stored or banked. And unlike money, you can't make it back. That's why after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do whatever you want to do, even if it is scrolling on the internet. Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
The FNB Stadium will be painted in black and white as well as gold and black on Saturday, 9 March. You can also be there. 2 lucky fans stand a chance to win a VIP experience at the Soweto Derby, including transport and a supporter's jersey of your choice, courtesy of SABC Sport. To enter this thrilling giveaway, rush to sabcsport.com and visit the competition page. Entries close on Tuesday, 5 March 2024. T's and C's apply. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Good morning. Well, the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Toko Dodiza, now confirming she's met with the King of the Zulu people, King Misizulu Kazwelithini, in his new role as chair of the board of the Inganyama Trust. About 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago perhaps, the King appointed himself as chair of the trust. It administers around 1/3 of the land in KwaZulu-Natal. Well, Minister Toko Dodiza is on the line to talk to you now. Minister, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and how are you with your listeners?
I'm well, thank you. You say, in fact, the King requested the meeting. How did it go?
Yes, the King requested the meeting after he had written a letter informing me about the removal of Inkosi Thandise Mzimela from the role of his nominee as a chairperson of the board, and then indicated to me that he will now take over that responsibility as the law allows him to be the chair of the board. So he then requested a meeting, which we then held last week on the 22nd of February in Durban.
Okay. Has he explained why he removed the previous chair, Inkosi Mzimela?
Well, his explanation was that he would like, as the chair of the board in terms of the law, to have a better understanding of how the Ingonyama Trust works, how has thus far been the activities of the board, some of the challenges that he had after taking over the role of being the king, about issues of governance and financial management, which have actually been in the open, that Parliament itself has raised and the minister herself has raised. But also, you'd recall the court case CASEC against Ingonyama Trust in terms of the leases of residential land. So all of this he was aware of. So he wants to have an appreciation of the functionality of the board and how he works, I would say, second.
Do you think the King is going to change the way the trust is run, or do you think it's really going to be as it was run in the past? I mean, you're expecting major changes. I mean, the court case, of course, has been a big issue.
Let me say that it is important for me as the minister responsible to thank Inkosi Thandise Mzimela, because from May last year when he was appointed and the issues that I raised with him and the new board, together with the portfolio committee, some of those issues are already being attended to, which shows us that the board is on the correct path. And these are the things that I also impressed to His Majesty, that this is the process that we've started, which I'm comfortable about as the minister. that, this is the direction in which the board has to go. Firstly, in terms of its accountability for the resources that it gets from Parliament in the management of their work. But secondly, the management of the resources of the tribes that are under Ingonyama Trust land, and how the disbursement policy should actually work so that the communities actually benefit from the exploitation of the land, which is their resource. Remember that in terms of the legislation, there's an attachment, a list of all the traditional communities whose land is under Ingonyama Trust. So they are the primary, if I were to call it, primary beneficiaries, and therefore accountability needs to happen so that they also know how their land is being governed, how their land is being put to use for commercial purposes, and how do those benefits accrue to them.
Minister, this may be a slightly delicate question, but let me try and tread my way to it. Could it be harder for you to hold the trust to account now? Let me just explain. If there's a chair of a trust that you have a role in dealing with, so say, I don't know, the chair of the trust is Stephen Grootes. You can say, Stephen, you're behaving badly, come and answer my questions, and I insist that sit down in that chair and answer my questions. You can insist I meet with you. I don't know if you can do that with the king. I mean, he's the king.
Well, he's the king, but the king has chosen to be the chair of the board, and therefore there are certain responsibilities and the fiduciary duty that the chairperson of any entity holds in terms of that legislation and the institutive act of that institute, such as the board, which is actually the creature of statute. And these are the things I took the king through when I met with him last week. Firstly, to explain the genesis of the legislation from KwaZulu-Natal government at the time in February 1992, which was a reaction by the then government at the time, not knowing what the future of the negotiations would hold, to then put the land governance under the trusteeship. And I explained that because KwaZulu government was an self-governing territory, therefore it did not have absolute powers like under independent states. It had to actually have that act ratified by the national government 3 days before the election in 27th of April 1994, which effectively means that this legislation is the creature of statute. In 1997, national government amended that legislation to provide for the board in order to assist the trustee and in the governance of the land of the various communities. So those are the things I had to explain to the king, but also the appointment process. In terms of the board, which most people sometimes do not understand, is that the premier, the chair of the House of the Traditional Leaders in KwaZulu-Natal, together with the king, they have a responsibility to nominate 4 people who they will then give to me. So it's not like the king can just give me those 4 names, or the premier can just give me those 4 names, or the chair of the House can give me those 4 names. They must consult and agree. And the second 4 names, I actually consult with them, and after consultation, I appoint. The only prerogative the trustee, who is the king, has is the appointment of a nominee who will then be the chairperson, who will then, take over the responsibility which he himself as a king would have taken. So in this instance, the king has decided that I will now chair this board. I'm not going to have a nominee. And therefore it follows that if there are issues of concern that as a minister I have, I raised it with the chair in his capacity as a chair.
Minister, thank you. I think that's a very comprehensive explanation. I really appreciate the time. Toko Didiza is the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. 10 minutes now to 8.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stays heavy getting into Pretoria this morning on the N4. This is the Emelafani Highway. You're going to be asked to sit in traffic right back through to Rousseau Street, down through a heavily congested Watermeyer Street on an off-ramp situation, and right through towards the N1 Highway. If you come in from the Mamelodi side or join from Simon Vermeer, you might want to give that a miss and just use the Linwood Road. Linwood Road a little bit busy in the Glenwood area, but it's going to get you into Pretoria quicker this morning. And the major backlogs on that N4. Irene being load shed, Main and Nalmapia stays heavy. There's also been a crash on Joburg's M2 West going into the Crown Interchange, so push back through to Joe Slovo Drive, and heavy again into Sandton, Winnie Mandela onto Sandton Drive, and Republic Road coming into Winnie Mandela, quite heavy as you arrive in from the Randburg side. Durban, South Coast up to Durban, being held this morning by a crash around Prospecton, traffic parking back through to Tweeny Hill. That's queue number 1. Queue number 2 from the M7 through Spaghetti Junction up to the M13 bridge through the roadworks. The M7 from Queensborough down to Bel Air Road again, absolutely jam-packed. Wakesley Road up through that M7 and on towards Bel Air, towards Chief Albert Tule in the roadworks area, very heavy as well today. Cape Town, a crash on the N7 going south before Bosmanstown Road. Traffic's heavy. It's all the way back through to the Dunoon area. Also a lot of congestion, no traffic lights. Yip de Jager, Mike Pina around the N1 highway, so a lot of localised congestion in that part of Belleville. And if you're driving into Stellenbosch, all approaches fairly heavy this morning. That includes Baden Powell up to Adam Tuss, and it includes a big pushback, worse than normal, on the R44. That's the route in from Powell, just approaching central Stellenbosch. That's quite heavily backed as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues. No more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference. Diable Noir can't wait to demonstrate to Sekhukhune United that what they did to them in Limpopo will not prevail in Brazzaville. Meanwhile, Babina Noko targets another victory against Yakadiamama when they close the group stage curtain. This is the CAF Confederation Cup. Catch Diable Noir FC and Sekhukhune United FC on Sunday 3 March at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
7 minutes to 8. Good morning. Joe on the line from the Free State. Hi, you've got a problem with RDP houses that haven't been finished.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners across the country. Yes, indeed, Stephen, I have a problem with uncompleted structure or RDP house for my late brother who passed on in 1999. What happened is that by the time he passed on, he was one of those qualified beneficiaries to receive a house, and they went there at this place to go and dig the foundation. And then after the foundation, nothing happened, but there were some other houses that were built in around the area. But his and the others were not done because the service provider apparently ran out of finances.
So this
and
goes
up until today,
this goes all the way back to the 1990s, and it still hasn't been finished.
1999, yes, to be specific.
And you are wanting to live in the house, obviously.
Come again?
You want to live in the house?
No, I don't want to live in the house. There is another brother of mine who's staying there. Okay. But the problem is now, because he has taken over that side of my brother, he does qualify for the RDP house, but when he goes there into the offices of municipality, they tell him that the site that he is applying for, there is a house there according to their record that was built in 1999.
Sure. Okay.
But when you go on site, there is no house.
And there's no house at all, just a foundation.
No, the foundation, if you think about it, Stephen, you can't keep the foundation from 1999 up until now in 2024, while there are people who are living on the same site. When you go there, you cannot even see today that there was a foundation there.
Yeah. All right.
But this is not the only problem there, Stephen. I saw the other day on television, I think it was people from Ipelecheng.
Yeah.
Who were complaining that, the houses were built, they were not complete. If you drive around small towns like Henneman, I see, you see it all over.
Yeah.
Now, the question is here when I conclude, Stephen. When the current president of ANC was nominated, he said, Chumamina. But we, the people of the country, we did not ask him to say, where must we send you? Because after we agree and then we voted for ANC, for him specifically as the leader of the government, we saw that actually we thought that it was going to improve our lives.
Okay, yeah. Joe, I hear you on the line from the Free State there. Very difficult situation. You do see this in so many places. And I don't know, maybe someone else can just help to build the house. It might just be the easiest thing sometimes to deal with a council that, won't go look at it. Very difficult. Joe, I'm sorry.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Well, there's been a spate of robberies on the N3 highway near Heidelberg. Lots of criminals acting there, hijacking people. Remember, the transport minister at one point was a victim to this, and it still seems that, in fact, police aren't able to get on top of this. Dr. Johan Berger is an independent crime and policing analyst. Dr. Berger, good morning to you. When you know that criminals are operating in a very specific stretch of a highway, probably able to move around quite quickly, how difficult is it to make that area safe?
Well, it shouldn't be too difficult once you know that this area is being targeted by criminals. I mean, you simply have to, the simplest thing would be to have observation positions and work according to what you see, what's visible. And then, of course, you have to do follow-up, intelligence gathering and so forth. You just have to identify who these criminals are if you know that they are operating in a particular area. And that shouldn't be too difficult for the police. But, well, we have to acknowledge the fact that people were arrested in the most recent instance. So, let's see what sort of information they can get from these guys, because that is what they should be looking for.
One of the problems seems to also be fake officers. So people will put a light on a car and try and pull people over. And sometimes I think, there's a sort of simple thing to this. It should be legal that the only car you have to pull over for is a properly marked police car with a police number plate and nothing else. You should never, ever have to pull over for any other vehicle.
Yes, and that, I think, there was an instruction in the police a few years ago specifically aimed at protecting road users from these kind of fake police officers. But that's the thing, very often you find these criminals impersonating the police, that they have marked police vehicles. In one case, I know a police car, fully marked police car, was stolen and used by criminals for this purpose. So I think, the best way, of course, that's the obvious thing, that the public should know that they should only stop when stopped by a properly marked police car. But this is also something I think that the police should be working on in terms of these criminal gangs determine where do they get these uniforms from? Where do they get the police marked car? And I know another case where they were simply capable of duplicating a police car. So you have to get behind the operations of these criminals.
Does it help to have police sort of patrolling the entrances and exits to the highway, to have a big police presence there, even just a sort of stationary position of officers there?
Well, I don't think it's possible to have police on all of these places, given all the other responsibilities the police have, and also the inadequate numbers that the police have. I mean, the police are currently under enormous pressures as a result of rising crime levels, especially serious and violent crime levels, as we all know, have been increasing year on year for the last decade. So the police are under tremendous pressures to be in a lot of places at the same time. So you'll have to work very intelligently with good intelligence and then plan accordingly, especially if you know specific areas are being targeted by criminals.
Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate the time. Dr. Johan Burger, an independent crime and policing analyst. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 8 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Top stories this hour, aka murder suspects to appear in court, and Godan fills Transnet positions. Good morning. 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan A.K. Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Motswane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Forbes and Motswane were shot dead in Durban last year. Nonjabulo Mdungwa Mugamu reports.
The breakthrough in the high-profile case was announced by Police Minister Bheki Cele at a media briefing in Durban on Tuesday night. A 7th arrest was made just yesterday. Police have confirmed that Forbes was the main target, saying that several of the suspects have been linked to prior cases. 2 of the suspects who were arrested in Eswatini at the weekend are yet to be extradited.
The cross-examination in the rape trial of the Rivers of Living Waters church leader Stephen Zondo is set to continue today at the High Court in Pretoria. Buseletso Mokoena reports on yesterday's developments.
Advocate Pete Pistorius put it to Professor Gerard Labuskaghni that he is relied on the one-sided version of the state's case. Zondo's legal representatives say they will put it before court that some of the motives in this case were for financial gain and character assassination. The 57-year-old faces several rape charges relating to offences he allegedly committed against female members of his church in Everton, south of Johannesburg, between 2013 and 2018. Zondo is out on warning. Biseloso Mokoena, SABC News.
The Northern Cape Legislature says it has budgeted 3 million rand for the State of the Province address, which will be held in Kimberley today. Briefing the media, Speaker of the Legislature, Noreen Cluster, says they will host approximately 3,000 guests at Kimberley's Mita Siperepere Convention Center. Cluster says the budget will cover transport costs for residents from 5 districts, food for guests, and broadcast expenditure. The Speaker says she expects the last supper of the 6th administration to be incident-free.
There's no way that any political party can disrupt the system. In terms of the budget, we have budgeted plus minus 3 million rand for the super. Which is very less against previous surplus for our administration.
The Huguenot Tunnel that was closed due to the mountain fire at Du Toit's Kloof near Paarl outside Cape Town is now open on both directions. This says good progress is made in extinguishing the fire. The Cape Winelands District Municipality's Joanne Otto says ground teams have focused on the fire lines nearest to the roads in the vicinity overnight, including the N1 that goes through the tunnel. Otto says the fire line above the entrance to the tunnel has been contained.
There are 2 other fire lines, one on the higher parts of the mountain to the right of the lodge, which is burning toward an area of very sparse vegetation. Once it reaches this area, ground teams will try to contain it there. The other line to the left of the lodge is burning high up on a plateau. 3 ground teams will be trooped there at first light. The team will continue with active firefighting activities throughout the day. There are 4 contracted ground teams from NCC and Cape Nature and 4 firefighting vehicles from the Cape Winelands on scene.
And Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan has announced the appointment of Nosipho Maphumulo as the Group Chief Executive Officer, along with that of Michelle Phillips as Transnet's new Group Chief Executive Officer. Phillips has been acting in the position following the resignation of Portia Derby in September last year. Elise Mnyandu is the department spokesperson.
Both these appointments are critical and they represent the government's steadfast commitment to equip Transnet with a competent and experienced executive leadership team to drive the strategic interventions that the board has put in place as part of Transnet's recovery plan.
And recapping our top story this hour, 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan A.K. Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Motswane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. I'll be back with the headlines at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Nomalizo Mandela.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's rugby. The Stormers are travelling to Pretoria to face the Bulls with their 4 World Cup winning Springboks back in the mix. And in netball news, Jenny van Dijk is the new coach of the Proteas team. Let's find out more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very slow into central Joburg this morning using the M2 highway. It's a crash at Crown interchange. That's pushed the traffic back through Joe Slovo and back towards the Benrose area. So you might want to think about some alternative routes to beat that rather than sitting in that heaviness. The N4 into Pretoria is still solid from VAR to Mayor Street right through to the N1 highway interchange. And a bit of a backlog approaching Pretoria on the N14 running into Eupheus Road this one. If you're arriving from Centurion into Pretoria, that's very slow. 2 queues to work through between Durban, South Coast and the airport. One is a crash at Prospect, and that is heavy leaving Toti from Twenty Hill. The second queue forms up from Booth Road Bridge through the Spaghetti Junction into the roadworks. And the N3's got an unusual backlog this morning, moving through towards Felix Flamini, Brickfield Road, if you like, from Spaghetti Junction going inbound, very slow. Cape Town, a crash on the N2 inbound ramp to the R300, so there's a bit of a delay to work through there. And still very heavy coming out of Kales River, Van Riebeek Road up to the R300, and then Strand Road through to the Stickland area, all very slow. And no traffic lights this morning. Yip de Jager and Mike Pinar around the N1, so that's causing a lot of localised congestion in that part of Belleville. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 8, good morning. You with SFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Glad you're with us this morning. When did you last go and sit down and watch a film in a cinema? When did you last actually sit down and watch a full film from beginning to end with no interruptions at home? I mean, when did you last do that? Watching a whole movie, 90 minutes at least. Sit down for 90 minutes, no disruptions, no kids this, no whatever that, no neighbor, all of those things. When did you last do it? We're going to talk about the power of movies. Are they waning? Is it sort of falling apart? The culture, the power of culture. Who's making that? Who has that power now? Is it influencers? That's your mediated conversation from 8:30 this morning. We'll speak to Professor Samson Mampredi about hydrogen, and in a couple of moments, the chair at Joburg City Power. Can you imagine that job? All of the problems they're dealing with at the moment. I think they're 10 billion rand in the red, if I've understood it correctly. Bonono Ramokele on your radio in a few moments. 8 after 8.
The SABC TV Licenses Winner Holiday Experience competition has finally come to an end. And we are pleased to announce that Thabo Batye is the overall winner, who will be jetting off to Coachella in April with his girlfriend.
I don't even know what to say.
Thabo entered the Winner Holiday Experience with SABC TV Licenses competition last year when it was running between 1 September and the 15th of December. He simply paid his TV license while he was at his grandmother's house in Kimberley, and he was hoping to win a PlayStation at the time. Little did he know that he would win the grand prize to either Coachella or the Bundesliga in Germany. Thabo obviously chose Coachella. Congratulations, Thabo. You are proof that paying your TV license really is the right thing to do. SABC TV Licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
The Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Roads Community Safety and Transport Management will conduct a public hearing on Marine Pollution Amendment Bill and Transport Appeal Tribunal Amendment Bill on the 29th of February 2024 at Madiboho Community Hall in Madiboho, Naka Mudirimulema District, Chin Community Hall Extension 4 in Fenesdorp, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Hamariba Tribal Hall in Morukwenya, Dr. Ruth Sohomosi Mumpati, Letlabile Community Hall in Letlabile, Buchanala District. All hearing starts at 10 in the morning.
Bafana Bastal remember what transpired in Lubumbashi when they went down by a goal to nil against the Ravens. They want to ensure their visitors walk away with sad faces when they meet in the final group stage contest. However, the DRC outfit are confident of another upset. This is the CAF Champions League. Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus TP Mazembe on Saturday 2 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Good morning. Well, you know all of the problems around electricity at the moment, and so often you see and hear in the news around issues around City Power in Joburg. They're the entity that obviously provides electricity to people in Joburg. I mean, just earlier this week, we were speaking to their spokesperson around the problems because of a fire at a substation in the east of the city, in the observatory area, and the fact that the cable they had to replace was over 60 years old. Can you imagine? That's just one of the problems. Then you've got the financial problems. You've got the huge theft and vandalism. And on top of all of that, and causing a lot of the problems, of course, is load shedding. The chair of City Power in Joburg is Bonono Ramakele. Mr. Ramakele, good morning and thanks for your time.
Morning, Steve Ovo, and morning to your listeners at home.
Firstly, when you look at all of the problems you face, I would imagine a lot of them come down to money. I think you have an overdraft of around 10 billion rand. I would imagine managing the money, getting enough money in, spending the money in the right place is probably got to be one of your biggest issues.
Yes, in fact, the issue of the overdraft is something that the board and the management has been working on and has a plan on, but it's just a matter of getting support, from the shareholder, which is the city, in terms of implementing what the board has asked for. Which is basically a restructuring of the balance sheet. And you can effectively do that overnight in terms of conversion of the debt into equity, of which some of the debt actually was repaid more than 10 years ago. But artificially it has been kept on the balance sheet. Those are some of the structural reforms that we have asked for. But in terms of money to actually do the work on the ground, one of the things that we're looking into is to how do you rope in the private sector as well? Because you're not going to be able to replace all of the cables, substations, mini-subs, etc., and make them modern with only government money. And what you've been raising, Stephen, is not just an observatory, it's all over, especially in the inner city and Roodepoort. You would appreciate that Johannesburg has possibly some of the oldest networks because we were the first to get electricity because of the mines and so forth. So you find that a lot of the infrastructure that's there is actually quite old, including the water infrastructure. So one of the things that the board is looking into is to say, let us bring in pension funds, let us bring in private sector players, and let us give them exposure to certain parts of our network in terms of refurbishing that particular network. And then we can use the grants we get from government to areas that may not be as good in terms of vending and revenue collection because of historical issues.
So what would deals with the private sector look like? I mean, would they just be lending you money and you would pay it back? Would that be the pension fund? Would you actually say this big company can come in, rebuild a substation or take over a substation, take over the running of it and you'll pay them a fee? Or would that company actually, be paid through the billing? Would it be allowed to bill residents? I mean, how far down this road would you go?
We are working on the modalities with National Treasury at this point in time so that we've got a model that works for the city that also works for investors as well. But we are thinking more of not necessarily a debt instrument, but an equity instrument whereby investors do have an exposure to the sales of electricity. City Power continues to run the entity, but runs it partly with utilizing private sector funds. But the private sector funds are not coming into the city's infrastructure. Ecosystem as debt. Ideally, it would have been special purpose vehicles that have the money and then invest into specific parts of the network. To give you context, if we were to use government money, it would take us roughly 50 years to be able to catch up with the infrastructure backlog.
Your relationship with the city, and it can get a bit complicated because, occasionally there'll be a vote in the council and the city will change. Suddenly the people in charge will change. There's nothing you can do about that. Is that difficult? I mean, are you finding you're getting on all right with the sort of political people in charge?
Yes, I think there's been a lot of stability that has been brought about, especially after the change of government. It's the government of local unity last year, March. I think there's been a lot of stability, and there's a lot more direction, and there's a lot more vision that is focused on delivering for residents and also thinking outside of the box. So the relationship is quite solid. I think, like any other relationship, you work on it on a daily basis. But overall, I think the political leadership and the stability, from the MMC, of infrastructure, Jack Squire has been quite admirable, and other MMCs and the executive mayor, etc. So I think it's quite good, but it's robust, and we'll continue to work on it.
You, like other people, have to deal with load shedding that has a big impact on your infrastructure. You have to switch things on and off all the time. They're not designed in that way. Also, when the power is off, it's easier to steal some of the infrastructure, and we've all seen that. In Cape Town, I'm sure you saw their press release, Mr. Ramokele. They've been very proud of the fact that they're introducing more power to try and alleviate load shedding. In a way, it's a bit easier for them because they've got that dam, which was built many years ago. But they're also now paying residents for electricity. The residents contribute from their solar systems. The measures for you to try and mitigate load shedding, how's that going? I know you want to use the coal-fired power station at what's it called, the Kelvin power station. But are you looking at other measures too?
Yes, actually, Kelvin is not owned by City Power. It's privately owned. We managed to extend the Kelvin agreement for another 3 years. That was last year, July, August. We've also introduced a short-term power purchase agreement because the law doesn't allow us to procure more than 3 years. So we did a short-term program whereby if you, Stephen, have got a rooftop or you've got a nuclear station, you've got whatever that can give us power, we just simply buy it from you from a period of 3 years. So we've already procured 98 megawatts using that. We announced that last year, November. And we've also put in a virtual PV power station utilizing government buildings. And most importantly, we're also refurbishing our open cycle gas turbines, which is your jet fuel powered power stations. And we will be announcing that, I think, in the next coming days. That will give us another 100 megawatts. And the big ticket item remains our 20-year IPP. We just got municipal approval. And we're saying anybody who has got projects that wants to sell power to the grid of Johannesburg can do so. To give you context, if the City Power grid was a country, it would be 10 times out of Lesotho. It would be bigger than Namibia, bigger than Botswana, bigger than Mozambique. So it's a very, very big ticket item that for 20 years we're going to have stable power and diversify away from Eskom. And these are things that are first. It's just that maybe we don't punt ourselves that much. And everybody quotes Cape Town a lot, but I think they should be looking more to the City Power environment, because we are also looking at base load power as well, because we are not going to make Johannesburg grow just by focusing on solar only. We're looking at sustainable energy sources that will put us in a good state as Johannesburg for years to come.
One of the things that would make your lives much easier, and you'll know this better than I do, is to put everyone in Joburg on prepaid. There's huge arguments all the time around billing and the estimates, which I think drive people mad because the estimates can be all over the place. People get bills they simply cannot pay. And I'm sort of amazed that we've known that prepaid is easier for years and years and years. I know there's political resistance to it. But surely it would be better for you to just put everyone in Joburg on prepaid, whether they want it or not. And frankly, it would just be better, I think, for everybody. You'll never have a billing surprise.
No, I don't think there's a resistance. Actually, we are very much pro smart meters, and that's what we're actually rolling out. We're rolling out a big program and on smart meters, and we actually want to replace all meters and make sure that they are smart, and not just in Johannesburg. But we've also signed a memorandum of agreement with the Gauteng provincial government led by the Premier. And one of the key programs in that program is to say, let's replace all meters and make them smart all across the province. And not only does it allow you to deal with issues of billing, but it also allows you to do what we call smart meter load limiting, meaning that in your household, Stephen, if you just switch off your geyser, you switch off your stove, even if there is load shedding, we give you enough amps, let's say between 10 to 50 amps, that you are able to continue living your life. Your Wi-Fi is on, your lights are on, your TV is on, and it does not disrupt your life in any event. I mean, even the area that I live in, there's a pilot that is going on. I have not felt load shedding. I don't have an inverter. I don't have solar. I'm exposed to load shedding like every other South African. But because of the smart meter load limiting that is being piloted in my area, and it's not because I'm the chair of City Power, but it's something that was randomly done by Eskom. So the issue of smart meters, trust me, is top of our agenda. We've got a big program on that. We're heavily investing into that infrastructure, and which is something that in South Africa we have not really done, which is invest in demand-side management. We spend a lot on the generation fleet and transmission of late, but we have not really invested into the demand side of the equation.
Bonolo Romokele, thanks very much indeed. I really appreciate the time. The chair there of City Power in Johannesburg shows you some of the difficulties in managing all of these problems. 21 minutes after 8.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, you'll have heard a little bit about green hydrogen, and basically the idea is you create hydrogen, you use electricity from the sun, solar-powered electricity, you take seawater, you split the atoms, H2O is what water is made out of, you take the two hydrogen molecules and you have hydrogen. Well, the South African National Energy Development Institute say they believe that there'll probably be around up to 300 billion rands worth of foreign direct investment in the next few years from Japanese companies who want to invest here. Professor Samson Mampwedi is the head of the Senedi's Energy Secretariat. Professor Mampwedi, good morning.
Good morning to you and the listeners, Stephen.
Welcome back. 300 billion rand, that's a huge amount of money. What will that money actually be invested in?
So we anticipating that the money will be invested in building hydrogen electrolyzers in various projects that will be implemented within the country, in various parts of the country. So what happened was South Africa has invested in research in hydrogen in general for more than a decade. And that research has resulted in the drafting of what we call the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, which basically is a document, an implementation document that guides government in terms of where the projects will take place. And then what then over and above that, we then went on a mission in Japan, where we were joined by Minister Blade Nzimande. And then there was an agreement that was signed between the Minister of Trade in Japan and the Minister Nzimande representing South Africa, which is the Memorandum of Cooperation. We ran workshops where we were linking South African companies and Japanese companies that are playing a role in the hydrogen space. So about a week or so, we had a visit from more than 30 Japanese companies led by JETRO, the Japanese investment company. And those companies came to South Africa to look at the areas where they can invest. We took them to the University of Cape Town and University of Western Cape, where some of the technologies were developed, because the idea is that we will also do mineral beneficiation. South Africa is home to about 75% of the global platinum reserves that are used when you make the electrolyzers and the fuel cells. So we've developed some technologies where we want to partner with the Japanese when they start getting involved in some of these projects. So the investment that we have estimated based on agreements that have already been signed and agreements that are in the pipeline. On the electrolyzer side only, it's more than 300 billion. However, we are anticipating that when these projects get implemented, there will be between 59 gigawatts and 100 gigawatts of renewable energy that will accompany these projects, because like you indicated, we need renewable energy to produce the green hydrogen. And the estimate, we haven't done the estimates there in terms of how much will be required or will be invested. And that is now with the global community, not only with Japan. And you know, Stephen, that with the 6.3 gigawatts that we have, more than 200 billion rand has been invested. And now we're looking at more than twice the installed capacity of the whole country in the form of renewable energy. That will be a massive investment that will be coming to South Africa.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
Now, it's actually true, because we have, if you look at the Hydrogen Society roadmap, we have about 16 what we call catalytic projects. We have big players such as your Sasol that we took to Japan. When we had engagements with the Japanese, they've already signed some agreements with some other companies and investors as well. As things stand, my office is basically coordinating a feasibility study for the Buhubai project in the Northern Cape, where they are planning the special economic zone. That feasibility study on the hydrogen side will be concluded in the next 18 months or so. So these are actual true things that are happening, as opposed to things that are up in the air. And then there are other projects, such as in the Eastern Cape, for instance. There's a company called Hive Energy that is developing a massive hydrogen and ammonia project. They already have off-takers for the hydrogen and ammonia. Some of it will be shipped to Japan and all that. The other day I had to fly there because they were signing big agreements with some big Japanese companies as well that will be coming to collaborate with them in terms of both funding and also creating the market for the hydrogen. And that project only in the Eastern Cape, we're looking at about 4 gigawatts of renewable energy that will accompany that particular project. So that's a massive investment in terms of the money that will be flowing into the South African economy. And over and above that, you're looking at a number of billions of rands on the electrolyzer side, as well as the balance of the system that will be built in Gqeberha. And that project is one of those what we calling the catalytic projects in the country.
Professor, so good to hear from you again. Thank you. Professor Samson Mampwedi, of course, is head of the Energy Secretariat at Sanelli. 28 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Stormers arrive in Tshwane. 4 Springboks.
4 Springboks. Could John Dobson unleash all of them on the Bulls? And could Jake White want to stay ahead of the Stormers? Now, this will be the kickoff come Saturday, 5:05 p.m. in front of a 52,000 strong capacity crowd at Loftus Versfeld. The Stormers will be there. They'll have Frans Malherbe, John Fourie, Manny Libok and Damian Willemse in their squad. The Stormers have a 7-0 record against the Bulls, but the players and the coaches will not be wanting to get carried away by that success. Jake White's Bulls have improved this season and they are the top SA side in third place on the URC log and have scored more tries and points in the competition so far. The Cape side have gone through a tough season. They failed to win a single game on their European tour late last year and know that the Bulls can turn things around this weekend. More rugby, James Murphy has been linked up with the Springbok 7 squad in the USA as they prepare for the HSBC 7's Los Angeles, which starts tomorrow. Now, Murphy says he could sense the team's feedback after Canada was honest and that everyone is raring to go. The Blitzboks are pooled with log leaders Argentina, Ireland and Spain. Now, Murphy added that consistency was a key subject of discussion and will continue to be this week.
Yeah, obviously consistency is definitely the name of the game for this weekend. We really want to strive to chase that. We've been really putting in the effort, really trying hard, and at some stage those rewards will come. And I really believe that the boys have been working hard, so looking forward to it.
And finally, Formula One, Fernando Alonso says that 2024 may be his last season in Formula One, but the demands of the 24-race calendar is proving too much to sustain. But he did say his first priority will be challenging for the title with Aston Martin.
It's going to be difficult. I think they have an advantage and a very solid baseline from the last two seasons, but this is Formula One. You cannot take anything for granted, and all the teams, we are working very hard to be in that position, to be in that dominant position. And I think we will have more teams fighting for victory this year. We will try to put some pressure into Red Bull and maybe hopefully see some cracks under pressure.
We'll have more sport next on SAFM around 12:30. I'm Zaikad.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Movies, do they still have any power? Does anyone ever sit down, even at home, and watch a full film for an hour and a half? That's next. Just gone 8:30.
And in the headlines, the Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Union, HAITU, says the reason behind the high rise of unemployed nurses is due to lack of funds to address staff shortages. HAITU has called on the Health Department to fill all nursing vacancies at public healthcare institutions. In other news, 5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan A.K. Forbes and his friend Debelo Tibbs Motwane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. And at least 20 boarding school students in Nigeria have died after a suspected outbreak of meningitis in the northeastern state of Yobe. More on these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow coming into central Joburg this morning with this crash on the M2 at the Crown Interchange. Traffic's all the way back to Joe Slovo. Just if you're thinking of coming off the M2 and routing up Joe Slovo, there's a couple of issues there as you get into the Durenfontein area. So you're caught between both. They're heavy on the M2 and big backlogs and an inconvenience on Joe Slovo. The Main Reef Road coming in from Nasrec Road in towards Amalgam through Industrial. That's quite so. That's also on your way into Joburg. You're going to be asked to queue on Republic Road coming out of Randburg across to Winnie Mandela. Heavy pressures there. And Winnie Mandela going north into Peter Place is quite so. There is a bit of load shedding that's just moving into the Sandton area. Winnie Mandela at Leslie, traffic lights down, so in and out of four ways. It remains very busy as well. The N4 into Pretoria from Vitaman Street starting to ease after an earlier operation there this morning, which backed everything up for a couple of hours, but it's all okay now. Leaving Durban's south coast, the N2 from Toti up towards Prospecton. There's a big multi-vehicle crash just as you come into the Prospecton area. The N3 inbound, very unusual queues through Spaghetti Junction down towards Felix Clemini, the old Brickfield Road. You don't normally sit in traffic like that, but you are this morning. Cape Town collision on the N7 south before Botsmansdam Road. That is now out of the way. Bit of traffic on a couple of routes going north up through the greater sort of Epping area. The N7 into 4 Trekker Road, Goodwood's busy. And if you're on your way to Parow, 35th Avenue onto Jan van Riebeeck into Epping Avenue, that's quite slow as well. It has been busy all morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Sundays at 2 p.m. S3 is your home for Indian cinema. From February the 18th, sit back and relax as you enjoy a world of colorful entertainment. We guarantee you a memorable experience with the best Bollywood has to offer. Enjoy the Holy Festival of Color with premium Indian cinema movies. Catch all the drama, adventure, comedy, and romance on Sundays, 2 p.m. exclusive to S3.
For years, Outsurance has been saying they'll save
save you money on your car insurance, or you can ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand cash if they don't. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
I was not happy with what I was paying. I heard about the 500 Rand from insurance, but they give me lesser amount for my car. I'm paying 523 Rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim-free for 3 years or more, tell us you want 1,500 Rand.
Give our insurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The FNB Stadium will be painted in black and white as well as gold and black on Saturday, 9 March. You can also be there. 2 lucky fans stand a chance to win a VIP experience at the Soweto Derby, including transport and a supporter's jersey of your choice, courtesy of SABC Sport. To enter this thrilling giveaway, rush to sabcsport.com and visit the competition page. Entries close on Tuesday, 5 March 2024. T's and C's apply. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
25 minutes now to 9 the time. Good morning. Time for your mediated conversation this Thursday morning. Underway in Joburg this week, the Joburg Film Festival. It's supposed to be an exhibition of films and perhaps a moment to look at the power of films. I mean, it's certainly true. If you go back over the last 50, 70, 80 years, films have defined our popular culture, and for a long time they've had a huge power. Think perhaps in recent times of the 2 Black Panther movies, the conversations they sparked about Africa, superheroes, and Wakanda. There was also a time when perhaps the most famous people in the world were film stars. They were the biggest and most powerful celebrities on the planet. I don't know if films have that power anymore. They're being replaced. First came the television series, and then social media. Now, of course, you can be a star, you can be a celebrity, you can have huge influence just through social media, but it also means we're consuming information differently. We don't sit still for an hour and a half and watch a movie. Rather, we watch short clips on TikTok and YouTube. So then, do films still have cultural power? Do they attract people to cinemas and to television screens, where we've probably watched most of the movies we've seen in our life? Firstly, this morning, from the Joburg Films Festival, Lolwetu Pakati is their spokesperson. Then, do films still bring an audience on television? Tinus Ferreira is a journalist covering our film and TV industry, and of course the author of the blog TV with Tinus. And then, the rise of social media. Ayanda Sishi-Wigzell is a social and political commentator and freelance journalist. We start then with the spokesperson for the Joburg Film Festival, Lolwetu Pakati. Lolwetu, good morning and thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
When you look at the Joburg Film Festival that you're hosting, the movies that are being shown, do movies, do they still have important power in our society?
Absolutely. Films still have a very important sort of influence and impact in our society. I mean, conversations, narratives, they all spark from the idea of a movie sort of coming to life and being portrayed. It's able to convey a certain message, share a story, explore different themes that filmmakers sort of want to immerse people in. And as much as we like to acknowledge that maybe the format or the landscape of consuming cinema and film has changed over the years, but it doesn't detest the fact that filmmaking and movies and cinema still are a remarkable sort of medium to be able to connect people and also share narratives in our society.
Is it the most effective way to tell a story? In one film, obviously, you'll have more than one story. You'll have several stories. But is it still a very effective way to sort of actually explain something or to explore an issue? It does take a long time to consume, and it takes a long time to make.
Absolutely. And that's why it's also sort of categorized or considered as an art form, because it does, as you mentioned, take a lot of time, resources, and also patience in order to be able to convey a certain idea or message or theme. But I believe that it is the most sort of effective way too, because you can truly visualize and sort of communicate an idea in a way that's completely different to communicating it, say, just with words or just purely with audio, the marriage of image, the marriage of sort of storytelling, the marriage of also then taking audio and embedding all these different sort of mediums into one thing to communicate a certain idea or sort of a theme. It's effective through that sort of channel and medium. So I would absolutely agree it's still as effective.
You'll probably find that 90% of the movies we've ever watched, we actually watched at home on TV. Does it matter? You're watching by yourself, you're watching with one or two other people, you're not watching in a cinema with other people. Has that sort of changed what a movie needs to do, the way that we experience it? Does that, I don't know, in a way change the movies we make?
I don't think so. I mean, it's also good to acknowledge that it's all nuanced, right? Everyone has a different experience, and people go to watch cinema or consume cinema in a different way for different things. As much as we like to acknowledge that it's lovely to be in an immersive space, sort of have a larger screen or superior sound system, or maybe you go to watch a movie in a cinema for the social experience, you can also consume a movie in the comfort of your own home. You can consume a movie in a way that you find best suits you. There's no rules to the game, and you can bend, change it, do whatever you feel sort of pleases you in order to be able to consume a good piece of cinema, be it at home or be it in the theatre. I think everyone can just sort of make their own rules and just find something that accustoms them and suits them the best.
Can a film still drive social change? I mean, we think of movies, I think, primarily as independent, but some as entertainment. But some have really driven social change. They put the spotlight on an issue. They reveal something. Sometimes it can be a really good way to sort of understand a particular issue from many angles. Do you think a film still drives social change, even just by sparking conversation sometimes?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you even asked this question, because it's actually one of the sort of driving themes that we have for the Johannesburg Film Festival this year, which is inspiring stories that also celebrating legends. And that's something that's been so intrinsic within our culture, is we sort of, as African people, we have this incredible ability to be able to tell stories, and that can also just drive a sort of political or sort of social change in our storytelling. We had a movie called Death of a Whistleblower, which is premiering at the Joburg Film Festival, which was directed by Joel Peary, and that is just a great example to show how films can address so many different topics, such as censorship, or so many sort of political and social issues that amplify them on such a platform. So I think it definitely can do such.
Do you think there's still a big future? I mean, I think there'll always be some people who want to watch a movie together, and there'll be some movies you want to do that with, and it may not be the sort of latest, incredibly boring superhero blockbuster that you want to see on a big screen. There is something intimate about even watching a movie that's just people talking, which are usually the best movies, with lots of other people in a cinema. That can be, quite an interesting experience. There are independent cinemas now where people will sort of get together and watch the same movie, so friends, a family. Do you think that might be the future of cinema in a way?
I will say that just like a tradition, it never starts off the same as it evolves over time. So I think that cinema is going to change in the way that we consume cinema, and the future of cinema is probably something that we might not be able to sort of even visualize now. But as a tradition exists, it exists for a reason, and it sort of maintains itself throughout years. I think cinema is still going to be very prominent. It might change in its landscape, it might change in the way that we consume it, and over the past 10 years, we've seen drastic change when it comes to film and the television industry, but it still exists. We could say the same thing for so many other different mediums. It still exists. However, it just changes and might be something a lot different. So I think there's still a huge future for film and television, definitely.
Lolueto Pakati, thank you. Spokesperson for the Joburg Films Festival. Really do appreciate the time. 17 minutes now to 9 the time. Continue your mediator conversation this morning around where the film still has the same power that it did. Tinus Ferreira is a journalist who covers our film and TV industry. Tinus, good morning.
Hello there.
This is all ancient history now, but there was a time when the Hollywood studios would not allow television networks in the US to show their films. They didn't want people to use a video recorder to record those films. Then they realized they could make a lot more money recycling older content on TV. Do people still watch films on TV in the way they used to? I don't know if we get the family round to watch the new premiere of a brand new movie on TV anymore.
No, sadly, unfortunately not. We want everything quicker, faster, shorter. The cricket needs to be played over a shorter amount of time. We don't want to go even and stand in the queue in the shopping mall or in the shop. We want it to deliver it by motorcycle. We want to watch a 1 minute TikTok. So sadly, no. To get everyone to sit down and watch a 1.5 hour or 2 hour movie is becoming much more scarce.
Does it mean that people also aren't watching TV and films together? They're watching them on their own more often?
Yeah, so exactly as what you already said, how difficult it is to get actual seats filled inside cinemas. The same thing is happening at home as well. Look at when you're going to an event, going to a restaurant or whatever, and you're 4 people sitting in that restaurant. Are people even still looking at each other? No, we're all looking down on our 4 individual devices. Or when we're standing around, we're looking at our devices. So the same thing happens inside the home, inside the car, inside the plane, everyone inside their own little bubble, perfect, just like Ray Bradbury described in Fahrenheit 451. We're all there, but we're not there because it's us and a screen. So inside the house, everyone's watching their own sort of curated stream for them on their service, on their device, each in our own sort of bubble.
Do movies still bring a big audience when they're shown on TV? And I remember, it's sort of not a great memory, but I remember, I forget the name of the movie, but it was about an outbreak of a pandemic, just as we were dealing with the outbreak of a pandemic. And everybody watched that. But I mean, those moments of a movie being shown on TV and being an event seem very few and far between now. Is that partly because of the way in which a TV series, their production values have gone up by so much?
Well, sort of yes, and also because the studios don't want to take that risk anymore of being original, so they run on what they think the audience, the built-in audience already exists for. So we'll get like another Tom Cruise, we'll get another Fast and the Furious. If you look at what we have at the cinema this year, I won't even mention, but it's all basically numbers, meaning all sequels, prequels. Everything has a 2 or 4, or there's even an 11 behind it that's coming up this year. So those kinds of things get the feet into the cinema or into the movie, and it's a business. They want to make money, so they risk averse. They don't want to give us new things and do new types of stuff, and then that leads to even lower box office revenue. So it's sort of a vicious cycle of more bad movies catering for the lowest common denominator to try and get the biggest audience, but then people don't bite, they don't buy the ticket, and then they sort of just keep making more Kung Fu Panda 4, Despicable Me 4, Saw 11. We're getting another Planet of the Apes, Beverly Hills Cops, another Alien this year. So yeah, just sort of sad. And it's not also as if the bulk of the television is really getting better. It's also just housewives, reality, heightened reality, soaps. So you really need to, it's very cookie cutter, and you need to almost, I don't know how you do it. It's my job to do it, but how your ordinary person is supposed to sift through all of this content clutter is really an almost impossible task to do.
There was a time when it looked like some big film stars were going into a series, and we saw that a few times. And what that meant was that those series, those television series, began to sort of create moments of their own. I have to say, I can think of many examples of scenes from movies that have stuck with me. I find it actually much harder to think of scenes in television series productions that have stuck with me, and I don't know why that is. But it would seem to me that maybe television still just doesn't quite get to the same power or production value of a movie.
It's sort of because there's just more of everything and too much of everything. It's the same as if you go down the aisle in your favorite shop to go and buy cereal. If there's 3 choices, you kind of can walk out of there and still remember those 3 choices. But there's over 20, although they still all come from just 3 companies. It's just a blur of color and image and brand. We're so saturated with video content or just content in general from the internet and on television, radio, that when you used to go and watch something maybe like a Shawshank Redemption, it had an impact on you. When you went and watched maybe a Rocky or whatever film, it had an emotional resonance on you. Now it's just one of 500 things being released in any given week. So for any one of those things to really grab you and stand out and make an impression in an attention economy where time is so little and you have to give attention to so many more things, and this thing that's constantly has like updates and notifications and whatever in your pocket, it really has fried our brains. So you don't really remember a movie anymore or a scene from television anymore, because it's just sort of like the next hit, and now you check your WhatsApps, now your emails, now this. At the end of the day, that moment that you watched feels like it was a year ago.
Tinus Ferreira, thanks very much indeed. Journalist covering our film and TV industry. In a moment, Ayanda Sashi-Wigsill on the rise of social media. You with SAFM leading the conversation 10 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good news, if you're just about to drive into Pretoria, the operation on the N4, the Emelefeli Highway, has been cleared, so traffic between Waterman Street and the N1 Highway free-flowing again. Pressure going into Sandton, the Mike 1's quite heavy, up from Corlett Drive towards the Greyston Drive exit, and there is a little bit of load shedding just moving into the Sandton area, so coming off William Mandela onto Sandton Drive into Parkmore, that is quite slow, and a bit of a backlog around the Sandton Mall area as well, Sandton City. No traffic lights on William Mandela at Leslie, so that side of Four Ways is very busy as well. Earlier crash on Durban's N2 North coming in from Monza Mtodi through the Prospect, and looks like it's out of the way. There's a little bit of a slowdown, but well off the big delays that we had earlier. The M7, that stays busy as it does these days, down towards Bel Air Road. If you drive towards the Bluff from Queensborough through the N2, expect some delays there. Cape Town, Jakes Covell Drive, unusually slow, coming out of Epping, queues up towards the Trekker Road Junction in the Goodwood area. Still a lot of traffic on the N2 inbound from around about the N7 through to the Hospital Bend area. In the N1 into town, no obstructions, but just really busy from Parow through towards the elevated freeway in the foreshore area. R44 into Stellenbosch is really badly backed up, a lot worse than normal. If you go into Stellenbosch from the Paarl side, that section of the R44, as you get close into Stellenbosch, the traffic does get really heavy. And today's blasting day out in the Eastern Cape. The N2 between Makanda and Fish River Pass will have its usual closure, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m, 3-hour closure for blasting. During that period, traffic diverted along the R72 coastal route. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues, no more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Nottingham Forest are navigating a path to the top half of the table.
Has to be a goal from Hudson. Yes! There we go! Get in there! Wrap it up against West Ham United.
While Liverpool focus on a massive strategy to be on the summit until the end of the season.
Oh! That's outstanding! Liverpool have turned the game on its head. McAllister's thunderous cross. And Cody...
Experience the Premier League contest between Nottingham Forest FC and Liverpool FC on Saturday 2 March at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
7 minutes to 9, the time continuing a mediated conversation this morning around whether or not movies still have power. Let's look at the power of social media now. Ayanda Sashi-Wigsill, the social and political commentator and freelance journalist. Ayanda, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning to you, Stephen, and good morning to all of the SAFM listeners.
We see so many short clips on social media all of the time. I mean, do these have a big impact on people? I mean, often it's cats, often it's, something that someone's seen from a CCTV footage or something bad happening to someone. They must be having an influence on people on a continual basis.
Absolutely, they are. Clips as short from 20 seconds up to 1 minute have an insurmountable amount of impact. As the previous speaker, Mr. Tin, has pointed out, that people actually do not have enough time to consume large amounts of content in the short amount of time that we have. We have to catch up with the news. We need to catch up with our family members. We need to check up on our other social media apps such as Instagram and Facebook. So the idea of having clips as short as 10 seconds, as short as 20 seconds, but they're able to pack as much of a punch as what content that is 90 minutes would do, is something that is incredible. And what it's showing is there's an evolution in the creative industry. There's an evolution in the entertainment industry in the way it is that content is being consumed by audiences. And so social media does play a huge role in this change that comes into the film industry and to the television industry as well.
It's viewed by billions of people and sort of all the time. It's sort of kind of always on. Doesn't it get a bit boring after a while? It's just like, so what? Someone's going to run into a dustbin. So what?
You would think, right? You would think that seeing something that is repetitive would be boring, but because the content is so different and so diverse, you're consistently seeing different things all the time, depending on which side of social media that you're on. So there's no like one linear sort of way in which these different social media apps actually work, because it's different algorithms that will be attracted towards different individuals. So, for example, for me, I'm skewed more towards on the political side because of my job as a journalist. So a lot of the content that I will be seeing on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on Twitter X, and on TikTok will be primarily from influencers and from content creators who are skewed towards the political end of creating content. But they are, for example, my niece, she would have content that has K-pop artists and influencers. My nephew, he loves things that involve all things Japanese culture. So anime, manga, these are the things that he would find on his social media algorithm. So it's different for everybody. So it's never one thing that is the same, but it's something that is attractive to those different individuals who are using those social media platforms.
It's interesting because it's not really sort of produced, and yet you get a sense, 70 years ago, the most famous people on the planet were often film stars, sort of Hollywood bias there. Are any of these people becoming big celebrities in their own right, people who produce this on a regular basis?
They are garnering social capital. I wouldn't necessarily, yes, I'd say that they're celebrities, but a lot of the time it's the amount of social capital that they have garnered on these social platforms that give them the same amount, if not more influence than celebrities who became celebrities through the old organic way of rising up the ranks. If you become an actor or an actress, if you end up on traditional forms of mainstream media such as television, film and radio. But now, because that is changing with the advent of the internet and the advent of social media, we are seeing influencers actually garnering more social capital. So and honestly speaking, Stephen, I wouldn't be on SAFM if it wasn't for the social media presence that I had garnered and worked on to make sure that the people who are in power will be able to see that I'm able to do the job that I am doing. It's such a huge and powerful tool in order to amplify those who otherwise would not be seen in the traditional mainstream spaces of traditional media. So yes, celebrities are important, but influencers are becoming just as important because they're also garnering just as much social capital.
What are they using the social capital for? Well, obviously, some of them are using it to make money.
Of Of course, at the end of the day, we all need to make a living. But a lot of celebrities and a lot of people with influence use their social capital for different things. For example, Angelina Jolie is a United Nations Peace Ambassador. Also, she does a lot of work with UNICEF. You have a lot of other celebrities, such as rapper Gigi Lamayne, who has her own foundation. We have other rappers, such as Shoma Josie, who also has a book that is being released. She has a hair extension line, which also teaches young Black girls how to love the hair that grows out of their own scalp. And so we have a lot of people that use their social capital for different things. Of course, we have celebrities and influencers that use their social capital for nefarious means, which is what we have currently been seeing right now in the audio space and the podcast space, which is why we have the laws which we have in this country in order to protect the public at large if they seem to be inciting any violence, because we know that social capital can have that indirect result. So we have the laws in place in order to protect society at large. But in general, most people use their social capital to make sure that they themselves are protected monetarily, and also they use their resources to help people.
Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate the time. Ayanda Sishy-Weeks, a social and political commentator and freelance journalist. My thanks also to Tinus Ferreira, a journalist covering our film and TV industry. And starting us off today, Lol Werto Pakati, the spokesperson for the Joburg Film Festival. Well, there is going to be a lot going on SAFM this morning. As you know, Kathy, of course, will be next, so there'll be a lot there. We, as a team, Sansa doesn't know this, so I'm going to go and find the chocolate cake that is in my cabinet, and we're going to put some candles on it and wish him a happy birthday this 29th of February, this leap year day in the year 2024. So, from Zelma, from Stanza, from Imdu, and from Melissa, and from myself, look after yourself, have a good day, try and be as productive as you can on a Thursday, because as you know, tomorrow is Friday. You're with SAFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Top stories this hour. Suspected cash and transit robbers killed in KZN, and meningitis outbreak kills students in Nigeria. Good morning. 4 suspected cash and transit robbers were shot dead during a shootout with police at Escort in KwaZulu-Natal's Midlands. KZN police spokesperson Robert Nchuunda says robbers in 3 vehicles forced the cash and transit vehicle to stop and then robbed them of cash and firearms yesterday. 2 officers of the Road Traffic Inspectorate were injured during the shootout.
2 AK-47 assault rifles, an R5 rifle, a pellet gun, and an undisclosed amount of money suspected to have been stolen from the cash-in-transit vehicle were found in possession of the suspects. One of the suspects' vehicle was found to have been reportedly hijacked in Germiston in Gauteng province earlier this month. Police are still in pursuit of more suspects.
5 of the 7 suspects arrested in connection with the murders of rapper Keenan A.K. Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Mutswane are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Forbes and Mutswane were shot dead in Durban last year. Nonjabulo Mtungwa Makamu reports.
The breakthrough in the high-profile case was announced by Police Minister Bheki Cele at a media briefing in Durban on Tuesday night. A 7th arrest was made just yesterday. Police have confirmed that Forbes was the main target, saying that several of the suspects have been linked to prior cases. 2 of the suspects who were arrested in Eswatini at the weekend are yet to be extradited.
The Health and Allied Workers Indaba Trade Union Haitu says the reason behind the high rise of unemployed nurses is due to lack of funds to address staff shortages. Haitu has called on the Health Department to fill all nursing vacancies at public health care institutions. The union says in recent years, the number of trained nurses in different provinces has dropped from 8,000 to less than 100. Haitu's General Secretary Lerato Mthunzi says with the majority of aged nurses leaving the system, there is a demand to train more nurses.
But at the backdrop of that, we do have nurses that have been trained over the years that are struggling to be employed. So nurses will sit at home or will try and, defer to other roles, go overseas, even, to private sector while they were trained for public sector. So we feel that training of nurses and employment of more nurses into the public sector is quite crucial at this stage.
Residents at Westernburg and Seshego townships in Polokwane in Limpopo say they want Premier Stanley Mathabata to focus on creating jobs when he delivers the State of the Province address today. The areas have experienced service delivery protests in recent months. Residents say service delivery and job creation should be his top priorities.
Our children are sitting at home with certificates, they don't get jobs, and the service is very poor, street lights and everything, and our water and municipality bills are very high. Can you please help us, Premier?
I expect nothing, my brother. I'm sorry to say this. I expect nothing because we are not working, we're staying at home without food on the table, and then they expect us to listen to them, whereas they are doing nothing for us.
Can you just upgrade Westernburg a little bit? Half of our roads unfinished, half of the roads have potholes.